really important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this Degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, to where you can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and D-gentlemen of all ages. We are here for the big one. We're doing the Q4 Thesis show, and we are very excited that each and every one of you could join us. Tonight we're going to be talking about a lot of the big questions going on right now and trying to read the crystal ball about what's going to be going on for here to the rest of the year, pretty much. So, with that being said, I am joined by an excellent panel of all of your favorite Degens. We got my co-host, Will Stevenson. How you doing, man?
Bitch, I'm muted. There we go. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. It's just been nothing but a fantastic day today. I've been talking with Dev Donnie over at Function Island. Shout out to all the guys over there. They've done some cool stuff. Man, it's been a great weekend. So Sam came over. For those of you guys that didn't catch the Friday stream, Sam was over hanging out with me over the weekend. We rode dirt bikes. We got coffee in the morning, did some crazy workouts. We just had an excellent blast of a time hanging out as two excellent brothers. And yeah, I'm stoked. I'm pumped. Life is good. Things are great. Let's see how the rest of the panel is going. It looks like we just lost Brendan. Oh no, there we got him again. We're just having some camera fun here. But Agent Jay Broski, how are you doing? Oh, and for the folks at home who don't know, my name is Will Stevenson. I'm one of the hosts here on the Degen Roundtable. I travel around the States doing ironworking and podcasting in my free time, talking to all you Degens. We just got done, Jeff and I, Jeff Apex Hex 369, we just got done playing some Sea of Thieves for the last hour or so, and that was a good time. So hanging out with my brother, hanging out with my friends, playing video games, getting stronger, like adventuring all over the place. Life is good. Life is great. Agent Jay, who are you and what's new and exciting with you, bro?
I am doing fantastic, sir. Thank you for asking. I am the resident great value technical analyst for the Degen Roundtable. You could find me at all of your Walmart shelves, local Walmart shelves, at a very reasonable price. It's been fantastic over here the past week for sales. So when sales are up, it's always good because that means I can have more dry powder to throw at this market if I wanted to. But my positions are already like pretty much built. So any dry powder that I'm building are just basically sitting in stables right now. And I'm waiting for like the stack that I'm building right now is basically for the throw spaghetti at the wall moment that the post-halving year of the bull market inevitably brings, where you can throw like the term throw spaghetti at the wall is so appropriate because that's what usually happens the post-halving year when the altcoins finally start running much harder than Bitcoin does, right? Because if you throw money in anything, it tends to go up in a right regardless, right? We saw that especially like that was extremely prominent during 2021, right? Like the latter half, like Q2, Q3 of 2021, when everything just went up into the right. So other than that, man, I just been enjoying life, sitting back. What do you call it? One of my buddies, he finally got around to getting up to DMing again for our Dungeons and Dragons game. So we started that up recently. So we had a session yesterday, so that was pretty fun. And then, yeah, I mean, spending time with the wife. We went to a new coffee shop yesterday, which was super cool. Love the vibes. They had this like nice cheesecake with freaking I really like tart flavors. So their New York style cheesecake had like this cherry tart. I don't know, like topping, I guess. Yeah, it's a topping. So we went and did that. So it's been a fun weekend, man. And I'm looking forward to this Q4 Thesis stream for sure. How about you, Bean? How you been?
Hey, everybody. I am doing fantastic. I've been doing a lot of research this week, crypto-wise. I'm actually speaking at the University of Miami Business School tomorrow, giving an introductory lesson on crypto, introduction to crypto and blockchain technology. So it's interesting that I continue to get asked to speak at these colleges, at local business meetups, at networking events. And I'm not really putting my name out there, but people are continuing to find me to ask to do that. Maybe it's just that I'm in Miami and these things are common and people are looking to branch out into new technologies. So I think that I'm in the right place and that helps. But University of Miami is in a small school. We're talking about a D1 football program. We're talking about one of the most expensive schools in the country. We're talking about a school that is really on the up and coming. I don't know what rank they are academically, but it's not a small thing to be asked to speak there. And so to be a guest speaker, honestly, it's really nice. And unfortunately, I have leg issues, so it was supposed to be an hour lecture in person, but instead of being in person, I'm going to be doing it over Zoom, and that's tomorrow. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm hoping to continue to build this resume so that maybe I can branch out to more universities. Maybe I can be one of those go-to speakers and go-to people to just talk about basics. Believe it or not, the first time I talked about introductory to crypto and blockchain technology, it's so far past where most of us are that it's actually hard to go back to the beginning and talk about blocks, talk about how this works and how ledger technologies work in the traditional sense versus blockchain. But honestly, it's been really good to me because it's given me an opportunity to now work towards speaking to normal people about blockchain in very simple terms. So I'm hoping that it's going to continue to help me onboard people into the ecosystems, get more people to be self-sovereign and self-sufficient when it comes to their own economic state. But honestly, I'm super looking forward to that. Looking forward to this show, Q4 Thesis. And I want to say one other thing. I saw somebody put a video out today on YouTube, and it was can you believe what they called it? They called it the perfect storm theory.
Are we going to sue?
I wish I copywrote that. Seriously.
We should be flattered, right? We should be flattered that they like our idea enough to attach their brand to our idea.
I am flattered. And I was going to comment, you know what? And I was like, you know what? Not worth it.
Yeah.
There's
enough bread to go around, Dean.
Yep. Yeah. But it was funny, and honestly, it felt good. And then also, I don't tweet that much, but I tweeted once this week about Hex and possible price appreciation. And I had the most likes and most shares that I've ever had on a tweet. It's up to like 220 likes and like 35 shares, which I normally get like 3 or 4 interactions on a tweet. So
bro, Hexicans go fucking nuts whenever there's green candles and other people are talking about Hex. Like we all just fucking retweet. Yeah.
When you compare the engagement to small Hexican channels and X pages, right, compared to other bigger entities within the space, like that ratio discrepancy is kind of wild. I forgot who posted about it in our chat, but they brought up that exact same thing, right? Like this guy apparently has been in the crypto space for a while, and he has over 100,000 subscribers on X, and then the most engagement that he ever gets is when he posts about Hex and Richard Hart.
Yes. Yep. And in fact, he said he's looking into it more because of the engagement of the community.
Yep.
So so that was cool.
The power of the people, man.
Yeah. But no, I'm just excited to get into it. Zenith.
Absolutely. I guess Will reminded me that I forgot to do this in the beginning. But hello, I'm Zenith. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at ZenithDI. I'm a bit of a general specialist around here, but I also do governmental and legal analysis, and that's kind of become my niche around here. But at the same time, I love putting these together, and I'm a little bit of the mastermind behind all the data and stuff pulled. So if you have any issues with it, you can yell at me. Leave these fine gentlemen alone. All their stuff is perfect. I am the one who who will take the blame for it. But other than that, it is time to say hello to all of you guys in the chat. And we want to thank you all for showing up tonight because, again, big stream, put a lot of effort into it. We all put the brains together, and we're ready to share ideas and help do some research with the community and also gather your feedback on all the topics we're talking about here tonight. And we want your input. So, with that being said, Will, please hold up the sign, my man. That's right. It's time for chat shoutouts. Let's see who is with us here tonight. First off, we got 54 Cent himself. He says, "Ahoy, Degens. Good to see you, Centurion 54. How you doing, man?"
When is someone going to knock him off first?
There's been a few
he got dethroned on Friday, I want to say.
A little bit. But if we count like percentage of success versus percentage
like 90%.
Of not success, that
Oh, yeah.
Centurion 54X owns the top of that hill. He is the king of that hill. So
He's on fire.
come to throne him if you want, ladies and germs. But good luck. He's at it. He's after it.
For sure, for sure. All right, up next, I think we have who actually was the number one on Friday, and that is Funkmaster Hex. His ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening to you, sir. Glad to have you, as always. Another favorite of the channel around here. Oop, we got two of them, actually. Well, everyone is, let's be real here. But we got Hex Glenn. He says, what's up? Throwing out the camel there. Throwing some love to the Camel Clan, I think, but good to see you, my man. After that, we have Sandy Beach. Sandy,
With
great
Sandy
to see you
Beaches.
as always. She says, hello, everyone. Yes, yes, yes. She's also making all the friends in the chat and saying hi to everyone. We appreciate you greatly. Up next, we have another excellent analyst. That is Crypto Stylist, none other than herself. Yes, she says hello, hello with the old fire emoji. We hope the stream's going to be fire. Yeah. Up next, we got one of the boys. We got Dre Sims. He says, sup, little guys. Sorry, we're only little guys for so much longer.
I feel like I hadn't seen Dre in a while. It's good to see him.
I don't think we have, but it's always good to have him.
He said he's been working over 30 hours overtime every 2 weeks. So
Jeez Louise.
Yeah,
Hey,
Dre's
get
been
that-
working.
get that powder.
Dre's been working overtime because he lost all of his money in meme coins, man. I told him. He didn't do it.
That's one thing that Dre loves to do is buy meme coins.
Shit.
That's right, Jay. That's right, Dre. We see you over there with your Liquid Loans meme token. That's like, I think that's as degen as Dre goes. Like, truth be told, he just buys like Liquid Loans. That's as degenerate as he gets. Shout out to Dre.
He's been printing a lot of pulls over the last like 9 months with Liquid Loans. So
Oh yes,
we'll give him that.
Yep. So staking that Liquid Loans token certainly has its benefit. You own part of the protocol, bro. Love to see it. Who else we got in the chats, Mr.
We
Zenith?
have a casualty of my desire for macroeconomics, and that is none other than Nate, aka the Ascending Man on YouTube, also part of the Degen Roundtable. He says we are here for the big one. So,
shout out to Nate as well. He also did a stream with the actuator gentleman, C3 or 3C, C3,
C3 and RJ. I want to say.
I can't
those
remember.
guys.
But they
Did you
did a
say-
great stream over on the Ascending channel, or the Ascending Man channel on YouTube. So go check it out.
Yep. And we had the absolute pleasure of Nate and I went on to the Hangout on Friday, and we had a chance to hang out with them there as well. And that was a great time.
Excellent.
For sure.
Outstanding.
All right. Up next, we got Crypto Tiger. He says, howdy, and much respect to everyone here. Agreed. Great to have you. And we have the man who might single-handedly be responsible for the Hex pumping, because he has been an absolute stud when it comes to onboarding, and onboarding big players too. And that is none other than Corey Geary on the DeFi Crypto Alliance with Corey Geary channel. He says, good evening, Polskins. Good to see you, my man. I hope you are doing well, and I hope the family is well, and I hope the power stayed on all 24 hours today.
Ooh, yeah.
That has been a bit of an issue over there, but yeah, it is great to have him. And we will definitely going to be talking about the Hex price later on. I have that footnoted for our crypto events on the upcoming calendar. I want to talk about the possibility of the Hex and Pulse Chain pump happening right now. Is it legit? Is it people trying to front run the court date stuff? Is it a mix? We'll see. Oh, last but not least, we got Crispy with the fantastic 80s mustache as always with the Quattro Cinco.
Good shit, Crispy.
Is that it?
Good to see you, bro.
That is a young Crispy man right there.
Look like a young
Very
Ron
dapper.
Jeremy.
Ooh,
Motherfucker.
I've never seen Crispy Man and Ron Jeremy in the same room at the same time before.
What the hell, bro?
Dun dun dun.
I wonder how many people get that fucking joke, man.
I'm sorry,
Definitely not
Crispy. I
enough.
don't mean to besmirch your name, but we're all having fun here.
Honestly, that
Yeah.
was not a diss.
I don't
Not at
think
all,
so.
not at all.
I think that Ron Jeremy has done things that many people wish that they could do in life.
I'm pretty sure he's still doing it.
Yes.
Good for him.
Regardless, we got a lot of love for Crispy and Crispy Man over here. He makes fantastic products, and I still do believe he's the #1 data scientist in the Hexkin, Polskin area. No one does it better, and he has the best tools out there, and you can get them yourself over at hexfire.io. So go check it out. All right, gentlemen, I believe that is it for our star chats. Let's get down to brass tacks. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the old thesis here, and then after that, we're going to run through the data. We're going to regather, have our discussion about the analysis, what we see going on, and then after that, we're just going to keep doing it for all the different topics we got. So, with that being said, Mrs. Producer, if you do not mind, I am ready when you are. Excellent. There you go. Don't worry, I made it the black background so I didn't flashbang anybody. All right, let's get after it. So today, the big picture is we're going to be looking at election season. Does it have any impact on the crypto markets or general markets? And we're going to talk about that. Up next, we're going to see if we're actually going to have an effect from the interest rate shift that just happened this last FOMC meeting. After that, we're also going to look at the macroeconomic calendar. This should be a bit of a shorter topic. We're going to look at all the data that we're going to be having come in between now and New Year's. Up next, we have possibly one of the larger topics tonight, which is going to be the Bitcoin price action now that we are 6 months post-halvening. That's right. 420 back earlier this year, we had the halvening. We actually did it. We had 420 halvening, so good job, everybody. I mean, it works if you're in England that way. Otherwise, it was April 19th here. After that, we're going to be doing some crypto TA with Jay, and then I also have prepared a little bit of myself so we can compare notes and see what we agree on, what we disagree on, and if there are any tokens you in the audience want us to take a look at, we can also potentially do some of that TA as well. After that, we're going to talk about crypto events for the rest of the year. This is where I mentioned the Hex stuff earlier. So we'll be talking about things that we have on the horizons that might not be fully announced yet, but are possibilities, and then stuff we actually know is on the horizons and what impact it's going to have. And then after that, we have the final topic, war, aka Black Swan worries, or what could possibly shake it up. I mean, at the end of the day, they are black swans, so it's very, very rare, but they will have a very large effect. All right, that being said, let's get into it. So first off, election volatility. We got election day on November 7th. We're going to be taking a look at some of the betting markets. I definitely misspelled Kamala there, but we're going to be looking at a Kamala outlook, a Trump outlook, and then does it even matter who wins with regards to the crypto stuff? And then after that, I believe this is from Bean himself. He says, with North Carolina being a swing state, will the slow and inefficient hurricane response have an effect on the election? That is correct. That is also part of the current events that we're going to talk about. So, first off, betting markets. They're looking pretty split, honestly, right now. It's almost a coin toss, depending on who you talk to. Certain websites are going to have it leaning one way or the other. Over on predictit.com, they have 55 cents to 49 cents for Kamala against Donald Trump, if you wish to place bets there. Again, on the left, we have our historical outlook. The blue is Kamala Harris. The purple is Donald Trump. So the big spike here is back when Kamala entered the race. That was back when it was just speculative, and Joe Biden was still the guy looking to do it. But ever since then, she became the front runner or the actual nominee, and that's where you see it going there. Down at the bottom, again, this one's from Polymarket, so different betting website, but these guys have it literally dead even, 49 to 49 with the margin of error there, or what their market does to create the actual spread. So after that, this is from usbank.com, I believe. They were talking about, do the elections actually impact markets? Short answer, not really. There are certain things that affect markets, but it's more of macroeconomic stuff. And in reality, the elections or whoever wins or whatever party wins doesn't have too much of an effect to the point that it's going to actually overrepresent in the data outside of the larger trends. So what I mean by that is this. So these are the last four elections that we've had. So we had Trump versus Clinton, Trump versus Biden, Obama McCain, and Obama Romney. What you'll see is that it didn't really change the trend too much. Everything stayed in a very similar direction. By the way, this is the S&P 500 on a weekly chart. So let's start with the top left. We have Trump v. Clinton. Actually, tell you, we'll do reverse chronological. So top right, Trump versus Biden. What we have is the larger trend. You can see the COVID dip here, but after that, it just kept climbing. So with that being said, the trend wasn't really interrupted. Back towards Trump versus Clinton. We have what, again, looks like normal market fluctuations. This is 2016, so economy was going relatively well, and it continued to show. The S&P 500 continued to keep chugging upwards. Again, it's just normal market fluctuations. Obama-Romney, this is the 2012 election. Again, very, very normal market movement, well within the bounds of the whole cyclical theory. And then the only outlier here is the Obama-McCain election. But specifically with this one, the thing to keep in mind is that this was 2008, the end of 2008. And this is when we had the massive housing crash, which ultimately led to the recession of 08, 09. And by the data, if you look at it, it was absolutely massive. Unemployment shot all the way back up to 10%. The S&P 500 had the major dip. So what you see here is, again, just continuation of the trend, which is that we are just in the like mid to beginning of the recession. So S&P 500 is going down. Not much change.
Yep. You know what this is a great representation of, Z?
What you got?
It represents the importance of, well, we always say here, right? When in doubt, zoom out, because even though I believe that on smaller time frames, you're going to get some kind of volatility depending on who wins, whether it's Kamala or whether it's DJT, right? Obviously, we like one better than the other when it comes to like the future of crypto here in the West, in the United States. So I think there is going to be some movements depending on who wins. But when you zoom out, I mean, this is the weekly time frame. Look at the S&P 500. It's up and to the right. We know that despite what you may think, both the Republicans and Democrats, they like to fucking spend money. There's a reason why our deficit has just become greater and greater and greater, and we can barely even keep up with interest payments. They both like spending money. One party likes spending money more than the other, but they still both like to spend money, which is why the S&P 500 and other markets are up and to the right. So
That's
small time scale.
Definitely accurate.
Yep.
And that's a very good point.
Scale, we're going to have some volatility. You zoom out and you look at like the 4-year outlook, the next 4-year outlook, it's going to be up and to the right, right? So
true. All right, I'm going to finish out the rest of the data and then we can get to the analysis.
Can I add one more thing there quick?
Let's hold off real quick. I got a few more slides to get through, and then I'll open it up to the panel. Sound good? All right, cool. So 2 more charts. We have inflation on the top one, and then we have the unemployment rate on the bottom. The white lines, again, are the election years. So compare this to your S&P 500 charts from the previous one, and it kind of lines up pretty well. The only outlier might be the inflation chart and the massive spike from COVID for the unemployment chart on the bottom there. But again, nothing looks too crazy there. And especially on the unemployment chart, what I talked about with the unemployment rate hitting about 10% during the recession, you can really see that on the chart. And that also reflects in the S&P 500 data, which shows that the elections didn't really matter too much. It's just, again, continuing the trends. And these were the macro forces that were affecting the market, not the elections. Finally, just a quick comparison. The yellow arrows are going to be your election years, or the actual elections in the first week of November. And then we have the S&P 500 as our yellow line as a comparison, and we have inflation as our purple line on the bottom. So again, what you can see is that it's pretty standard stuff. Ooh, excuse me. And the bar chart is the actual price of gold. So gold has been an interesting one, and I think that we've talked to Axis a little bit about it. I think he believes that Bitcoin is going to transfer more towards a gold style up into the right forever chart as opposed to the traditional Bitcoin 4-year cycle. It still will have some bit of a fluctuation in there, but one of the theories out there right now is that Bitcoin has become what gold pretty much is right now. I don't know if I entirely agree with that, but by the data, it seems that macro market forces really affect everything right now.
Okay, real quick, Z. So that's a good point. So I can see where Axis is coming from, right? But here's the thing. Take into consideration, we only have a few 4-year cycles, so you have only like less than a half dozen data points, right? But if you look at the pullbacks during each consecutive bear markets, they have tended to become much larger in scale, right? So I don't think that Bitcoin necessarily loses that kind of volatility in terms of like the bear market, right? But again, small handful of data points, but at least that's what the pattern's been, right? The pullbacks have tended to be like greater and greater during the bear market. Yeah,
I understand the argument, and I totally see all the merits for it. I think Jay and you and I reiterate this point a lot, which is we're going to assume that the trend holds until we have confirmation that the trend is broken. Mm-hmm. So until we have confirmation, I'm still a 4-year cycle guy.
Same.
All right, final point here is the final point I wanted to get to. Bitcoin to hit $200K by the end of 2025, regardless of who wins the election. Wow, shocker, look at that. I think that the price of Bitcoin, personally, is going to have different paths depending on who wins the election, but that's more of just like government spending, general inflation data, and kind of the market sentiment overall. But at the end of the day, it's not really going to turn off the bull market depending on who wins. It just might happen in slightly different forms. And we see that with one of the bank executives that this is from Cointelegraph. They actually talked to them. So that's where you get this. All right, election takeaways. Here is our slide. I'll go ahead and do my spiel real quick and then pass it over to you guys. So, Uncle Z, elections always bring volatility, and this one even more so. Kamala Harris winning means more government spending and more regulation, such as the crypto regulations, aka money printer go burr and the markets go up and to the right thanks to the injection of capital. Trump winnings means slightly less government spending. I think this is the dirty secret here about Trump, which you guys nailed earlier, which is that The Republicans also spend. The issue is that you have big spenders and bigger spenders. Everybody spends big, and no one's willing to really cut back on spending or touch entitlements or try to do some sort of reformation on it. So it's going to be the same. With Trump, though, I think you're going to see less regulation, a little bit stronger, more organic, stronger markets. But both scenarios will help fuel the crypto bull run in 2025, just for different reasons, whether it's a good market or whether it's money printing. Because we know that both of those things on their own will pump crypto. All right, gentlemen, all you. What do you got?
Sure, I'll go next since I have a little bit on the slide. So I think that a Kamala presidential win would bring a little bit more volatility to the crypto market because there's uncertainty about regulations and how her presidency would look towards crypto. Sure, she said recently, yeah, I'm going to be really good about digital assets, but what does she even mean by digital asset? Does she mean crypto? Does she mean central bank digital currency? I don't know. I also have a little bit more worries about the wars continuing and a little bit more potential for a black swan event under that leadership. With Trump, I'm a little bit more confident in the foreign policy, definitely more confident in proper regulation for crypto, good regulation that isn't going to stifle innovations, that's going to bring more people into the ecosystem, that's going to help it to grow. And so while I think that overall, the market should go up in both, I do think there's a little bit more of a question mark, a little bit more of a worry with Kamala, because let's be honest, she hasn't been pro-crypto. She hasn't really said anything pro-crypto. The only thing she said is, yeah, we're going to be good about digital assets. To me, that means nothing. She speaks a lot of things in a lot of ways, but she doesn't often say what she means. So I want to see from her true, honest speech about what she wants to do with the crypto sector. And until that happens, I'm going to have a little bit more worry if she gets elected. Not just, I'm only talking about crypto, right? There's other reasons why I might be worried that she gets elected, like freedom of speech and other things. But just speaking about crypto, I have some worries if she gets elected. Yes, you're right, Zenith. They will spend more money, and that will drive up markets. Unless there's issues overseas, unless inflation starts to kick back up, so there are some worries there for me personally if that happens. So we may not see as much of an up and to the right with crypto. There might be a little bit more of a lag before it gets up to those higher levels that we want, because there's a little bit more worry in the market. Like you said, there could be different paths depending on who gets elected, and I agree with that completely. But I don't think Kamala is pro-crypto, and nothing that she has done or said gives me excitement or confidence that there's going to be proper regulation or that people are going to be comfortable innovating within that space here in the United States. So there is a little bit of a worry there for me.
For sure. I think depending on who wins, you're definitely going to see a different attitude towards the regulation of crypto. But that's something that's we've come to expect at this point, which is that we've had a chance for effectively both of them to be presidents. If you just want to just go ahead and promote Kamala, even though Joe Biden's kind of just like, on the beach and taking more vacation days, and he should take in 40 years combined, but that's neither here nor there. I do want to kick this over to Will Stevenson and ask Will Campfire Stories Stevenson about this data point that we provided here, which is that it doesn't even really matter who wins the election. At the end of the day, it's all just stories. The markets are still going to go up, theoretically.
Yeah, I see it as kind of like, I'm a surfer on a beach. I'm worried about the waves that are happening right now. There's going to be different waves in the future. I might know that a storm's coming. I might know that it's going to be like a sunny day the next day or whatever. But like, we don't know. Well, I mean, there's probably some sort of, I'm using the waves analogy because it's all magic to me as far as I'm concerned. But like I could look at the waves that are happening now, and I might be able to extrapolate like what kind of waves are happening in the relatively near future, but I don't know what the waves are going to look like tomorrow or the next day or 3 months from now. So like, from the perspective that I take, it's like I'm better suited working off of the decisions and the information that I can use to leverage my decisions. All of it boils down to two things. You're either buying or you're selling, right? And if you're holding, you're basically buying. So like, as long as I'm not selling, like all of this information will influence one of those two decisions. If I'm up a lot and I'm satisfied, I might sell. If I'm down and I'm scared, then hopefully I don't sell, but hopefully I would buy more. right? Or make more money or something, so I can back that dump truck up again. That's my 2 cents. I don't know like who's going to win, who's going to lose. I personally like, of course it matters, right? Because that's going to change the way that people tell the campfire stories that inspire, whether they buy or whether they sell. So like the fires will be brighter and hotter, or they'll be dim and dull, or they'll do something, but it's going to influence the way that people tell stories, that influences the way that they take action. So it is very important. I just don't know how it's going to go, and I don't know how the market's going to react, and I also don't know what the black swan events are. I think we'll get to those here in a little bit, but that's my 2 cents. Jay, you got something? It looks like you're prepping to speak.
Yeah. So a few things. One, I know because people are gonna fucking harp on it. When my statement earlier about the magnitude of pullbacks being greater, that is in terms of the fibs based on log scale. All right. So I have to make that statement very specifically because people are gonna be like get their panties up in a bunch. Number two, agree with Brendan. Kamala Harris says a lot of things. What's that saying? Right? She speaks a lot but says very little. Right. I think we can all agree there. There's a lot of hot air that comes out of her mouth, but there's no policy. There's no substance to the words that's coming out of her mouth. And so, yes, I think macro wise, right, long term time frame wise, I think the markets are going to go up into the right generally. However, it's certainly like Will stated. I think it's going to matter significantly who wins because we know that one side has been very forward and forthcoming about their stance on crypto, right? And more importantly, we know the people surrounding DJT, right? We know that his cabinet is, JD Vance, number one, his vice president, Vivek Ramaswamy, number two, Robert Kennedy Jr., number three, Elon Musk to a smaller degree, right? We know that those four people are probably going to get some kind of cabinet position if DJT wins the election. And because they have been very pro-crypto, we know that at the very minimum, they're going to probably expedite regulation here in the West when it comes to crypto, which is not the same thing you can say if Kamala Harris wins this election. However, do I think that regulation will proceed regardless? Absolutely. Why? We have the Senate. The Senate belongs to the Democrats. The White House belongs to the Democrats. Look at what policy has done here, despite the fact that the Senate and the White House are blue, and Gary Gensler sits at the very top of the SEC, right? I mean, we spoke about this prior. The second in command, basically, because we know it's not Kamala Harris, right? Chuck Schumer in the Senate he's not necessarily pro-crypto in the way that we want him to be, but he's not anti-crypto either because he's voting to move forward these regulations, right? He voted to overturn 121, right? He voted. I have that. We have to fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure that he voted to move forward with Fit 21 as well, right? We know we went over a few of the recent congressional hearings with crypto, right? One with the expert witnesses, one where actually all five members of the SEC were present, and we got statements from both sides of the aisle, and we know that we have a considerable amount of people, like for example, Richie Torres on the left, right, Rokana on the left, who are very outwardly pro crypto, despite the fact that they are Democrats. So, do I think that regulation will move regardless in a positive direction? Yes. Do I think that the technology will become much more adopted here in the West? Yes. However, I think it's going to be at a slower pace if Kamala Harris wins. But overall, long-term perspective, I think we move forward. The market goes up and to the right, regardless of who wins.
Yeah, can I add one thing? The markets go up, right? But if there isn't good crypto regulation, that doesn't mean that crypto goes up into the right as much as it should. It might not follow the traditional markets as much as it normally does or as it should if Kamala Harris and her, if she wins, and whoever she puts around her aren't friendly in that way. So, Jay, I agree with you 100%.
For sure. I think the final point that I have is like the markets are going to continue to do what the markets do, regardless of who gets elected. It might look slightly different, but the difference between whoever gets elected, I think, is much more along it's the difficulty of the path for regulators and people building and operating inside the space. And I think one of the things we've been seeing is that the unclear regulation or the weird application of the existing securities laws is actively pushing the crypto industry and producers and builders out of the United States. I think there is starting to get a certain amount of groundswell, especially within Congress, based on the last time we saw Gary Gensler and the SEC heads in front of Congress. Is that more of your average congressmen are willing and able to try to recapture that crypto market and try to bring it back here. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, I know that Gary Gensler is still installed in his position until 2026, I want to say. And same with Jerome Powell, I think.
Unless Kamala gets elected and she upgrades him to a higher position, which there's been rumors about that. There's been rumors about that. What if he became the Treasury Secretary? I've heard people talk about that. She might upgrade him to the Treasury Secretary.
Would that be fucking hilarious, guys? I think it'd be funny.
In fact, Dre, shout out to Dre. He said that in the chat as well.
Yes.
Yep.
But I've seen that in multiple places. Brother. It wasn't just one source that said that. And look, it's just a potential. But that it's even out there means something. There's a reason for that.
That's very fair. Tell you what, are you guys ready to talk about our other favorite government employee, Jerome Powell?
Do it. He's much better than Gary.
One more thing, Z, that I wanted to add. Here's the final point that I want to make on this topic, right? I think the reason why regulation moves forwards despite who wins in the White House is because I think we've already made it fairly obvious to everybody in the West that crypto is an important issue to a broad majority of the voter base, right? And what do politicians want to do? They want to win. They want to retain their seats. And so they know that if there's going to be a large turnout from the crypto crowd, because we are inherently single issue voters. Well, I mean, let's not get into it, right? Because we're single issue in the sense that we care about crypto, but the umbrella of crypto, there's a lot of the American ethos and a lot of American spirit that undergirds that foundation, right? But that's for a different conversation. But they know that crypto voters are single issue voters, and so they want to win our vote. We can see a good example of this with what happened with I forgot what state Elizabeth Warren is in, but John Deaton is basically the guy that's going to battle for her seat in the Senate. John Deaton was no name outside of the crypto space, and suddenly he's now the top front runner to take the seat from Elizabeth Warren. Right? He basically pushed out the Republican candidates for that Senate seat because he got an overwhelming amount of support from the crypto community. That is fucking wild. He is now in a position to push Elizabeth Warren, one of the top dogs in the anti-crypto army within the Senate, right? And it's all because of his influence and his pro-crypto stance. That is a big fucking deal, right?
My home state of Massachusetts.
There you go. Thank you, Bean.
Oh, sorry. No. What did the mass folks say obnoxiously? It's the something of Massachusetts. The Commonwealth. The Commonwealth. Thank you. There you go.
We're technically not a state. We're a Commonwealth. There are 4 Commonwealths. Do you know what the 4 Commonwealths are?
Relevant.
Massachusetts, Virginia, Kentucky, and there's another. Virginia, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Massachusetts.
All right, fair enough. All right, gentlemen, let's talk about Papa Powell. Mrs. Producer, if you don't mind. There we go. Excellent. So we're going to look at the sentiment, FOMC documents and projections, FedWatch predictions, betting markets, and the gold markets. I think the gold markets fit into this one. I'm going to be pulling these up a few times tonight. I think gold is an excellent it's an excellent wall to bounce your ideas off of when it comes to inflation, because traditionally gold is the hedge against inflation and just safe investments, aka precious metals, just like physical objects as opposed to our dirty fiat money. But start off, this is actually from Wednesday. This has drastically shifted since then, but this is our first meeting in November 7th. This is 2 days after the election. we are looking at a probability of having a quarter point cut as opposed to a half point cut. The no cut option is not even bet on at all here. This is data that comes from the futures markets. And since then, this number is actually closer to 98%, which is that it is a 98% chance, according to the futures markets, that we're going to get a quarter point drop in November. And then the next one, December 18th, aka the last one for the year. Again, the data from Wednesday is already irrelevant, and it looks like it's going to be another quarter point as well. The interesting thing about this chart in particular, or anytime you get past the next meeting, is that you have to start taking into account all the different possible futures. So some of these percentages are based off the percentages of the last one, so they have this compounding and branching effect. So that's why you kind of see a larger spread the further out you go. Also, just more time means more options. But yeah, we're looking at another quarter point in December as well. This comes from Polymarket. Again, data from Wednesday. We're looking at about a 25% drop. That's 50%. Half point drop, 39%. Very similar to what we saw earlier. And then that's for the December one. And then for the November one, same thing. Final interesting one from Polymarket was how many Fed cuts are going to happen this year. And the betting odds favorite right now is a whole point or 4 drops. And we've already had 2 of them from the last meeting. Remember that. So again, this data is exactly the same as all the others. It shows that people are expecting 2 more quarter point drops before the end of the year. And if anything, they're hedging on the side of more drops instead of less drops. That's why 39% at your 5 is the next option. This is the table that I pulled from the FOMC meeting last time they put out their documents, which was in September, thankfully, so it's very relevant. So you can look at all the different projections, whether it's GDP, unemployment rate, inflation, or what they project is going to be the federal funds rate. So we are looking at 2020 or 2024. By the end of it, they're looking at about 4.4%, so that's right in line with exactly what we saw there. 2025, it looks like they're going to try to drop it another entire point, and their halfway projection is 4.1. Then similar stuff all around. I will say it is interesting to see that their inflation projection rate is that we're definitely going to be at 2.3% by the end of the year and 2.1% by the end of next year. It's that's it's bold. I like it.
Good luck.
Trying to stick to your 2% number, but we'll see.
Let's hope.
Yeah, gold is actually making new all-time highs right now.
Makes sense.
Again, yep, it does.
Shout out to Axis on that too. Axis, one of the first people months ago, talking about how gold's ready for a big breakout.
Oh yeah, it has been moving, and this is an asset that traditionally should not be moving too much, but chart says differently. By the way, this is the gold chart from TradingView on the 1 month time frame. So that's what we got. Right now we have what's going on with we have a bit of a triple top here going on over the last few years, sitting at that's right around $2,800, I want to say, and we broke out past that finally. And now we are going into our new all-time high territory for gold as well. So the sentiment on gold is that a lot of people want gold right now. And I think that part of that is because the fears of inflation are still not entirely away. So here's your next text wall. Uncle Z saying, the Fed intends to cut rates once and maybe twice before the end of the year in order to continue their stance that switched starting in the last meeting with the half-point drop. The risk of inflation is still high, but we may not see the effects of current events for a few months in the data. The goal is for unemployment to stay below in the mid 4% region, but Jerome Powell did not specify exactly how that would happen beyond normal Fed actions. So this one here, I'm actually referencing the show that we covered for the last press conference, which was, he was like, yeah, inflation will, or unemployment will probably stick in the 4.5 range. And that's a good place anyways. And then one of the reporters was like, okay, how? And he's just like, it just will. It's like, all right.
Oh, fuck. They've called me on my bluff.
A little bit. But his point still stands, though, which is that even if you go, even if you go all the way back to one of the other charts that I had, the unemployment rate, having an unemployment rate below 5% is actually pretty good. I know it doesn't sound like it, or it doesn't feel like that, especially considering we've had the low 3% unemployment rates within the last decade, twice. So it doesn't feel good when you compare it to that, but overall, looking at the entirety of the market, aka when you zoom out, yeah, below 5% is good. Anything like 4.5 below is signs of a healthy, strong economy.
Yep.
All right, Bean, I'll pass it over to you, my man.
Yeah, look, the one thing that we need to worry about as interest rates start to come down is core inflation was still sticky, right? The overall inflation number looked really good, but core inflation still upticked a little bit more than anticipated last CPI report. And so that's something that needs to still be looked at and monitored. The other thing is the Fed Watch tool actually has not only rate cuts coming in the next 2 meetings, but the next 4 meetings. They have nearly 70% or higher chance that the Fed is going to cut rates by 25 basis points. So we're looking at a 100-point cut in the next 4 meetings, right? That would give us 150 basis points cut in essentially 5 months' time. Now, the worry here is that inflation number, that core inflation. Are we going to see that sticky? Are we going to see that start to rise a little bit as we see more quantitative easing being let into the markets? And that's the one thing that I want to tell people you really need to keep an eye on. If core inflation, don't look at the overall number, because there's some volatility that goes into there. Take it, stripe out as much of that volatility as possible. Look at that core number, which Fed Powell talks about a lot, and that will give you a better idea if we're ticking up in a place that's a little bit worrisome. If we're getting to an area where it's sticky, right? Because energy, food, that's a little bit more volatile. But those core things, that's something that really needs to be paid attention to. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully, it continues to drop still. But we're not out of the woods fully, in my opinion.
That's true. I think this might be a good place to bring it up. But in the last week, we've actually seen 2 current events items that hit that no one was anticipating, I think, that actually have the potential to go against the Fed's fight of inflation. First off is the massive hurricane that happened, and that has had some very devastating effects. I was looking at some of the geological data about that. It's like a storm that magnitude has not happened since like the 1960s, especially in the areas where it hit, because it got all the way into Appalachia, which is not coastal at all. It just goes
1906 was the last time it hit Appalachia like that.
There you go. Yeah, this is something that does not happen very often. It's stuff that people don't really plan for, and disasters of this magnitude do have some sort of an effect on whatever supply lines or industries are in those areas. The other one, the magic word there, supply chains, is the dock worker strike. I have a bit of a cynical take on that one, which is that I think this is more of negotiating tactics as opposed to an actual strike that has the ability to be prolonged. I think it's something that is probably going to get resolved quickly, but if it doesn't, what that means is that the dock worker strike, especially if Joe Biden right now chooses not to force them back to work through, I think it's like one of the National Securities Acts or something, but if the dock worker strike continues to go on, it will have the ability to affect supply chain lines. And they are going... Oh, sorry, Brendan. Thank you. You were correcting me. The dock workers are back to work already. All right. It's a bit irrelevant. But I just want to say that anything that can interrupt supply chains, that's the kind of stuff that will potentially negatively affect inflation. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I'll just say on that. So they came to a tentative agreement through January that they get a 62% raise on their wages. And so they need to still finalize that before January, so that they have a final agreement that continues. So there is still a little bit of worry there that we could see this lag into January. But essentially what they did from pressure from Biden was push it past the election. What was worrisome from the Biden campaign and those people was, hey, look, this can't hurt our election. You guys and I you're a union. I'm pro-union, right? Like, hey, let's get this done. And then in January, maybe you can ask for even more money. But for now, at least it's not affecting the election, in their opinion.
What a fucking weak response. Like, hey, I'm going to solve this problem for you later, as opposed to like, let's solve this shit now. Like they're basically like, hey, I'm going to slap a temporary Band-Aid on it. By the way, vote for me and I'll solve it permanently.
Look, honestly, in my opinion, it seems like they're going to get at least this 62% moving forward. The question is, will they get more than that? So I think they were a little bit underpaid, but the problem is that you can mobilize a lot of that workforce through AI and through machinery, right? You could build stuff that takes crates off a boat and puts it onto a dock, right? So the worry isn't just that they want to get paid more. They're also trying to get it written into their contract that they don't actually start to create AI and robots that take jobs away from the people. And so it's not
really
just
the automation aspect.
What's that? Automation.
They're really fighting the automation.
That's one of the big sticking points. It's like, hey, we want a 3-year to 5-year contract, and you can't automate it all, and you have to pay us plus 75% wages. And look, I get it. It's like, hey, automation is good because now we can have these people doing other things potentially. And look, automation, you always think takes away jobs. It allows people to do other jobs. It allows for the human race to grow in a different way. So automation, generally speaking, is good for our country. But look, I'm not going to get into a political argument here, but that's just the facts of it. So then one side wants no automation, one person wants automation, one person wants 77% raises. Someone says that's ridiculous, and we can just automate you.
Yeah,
That's true.
Well,
The
it's
larger
the harsh
point,
reality of life, right? That's the unfortunate. Like this isn't our first rodeo. This has happened in so many times during the history of this country, the history of the world. Technology tends to move the world forward. It tends to phase out a lot of the jobs, and the unfortunate reality is you either have to pivot and acquire a different skill, or you're going to get pushed out, right? That's natural selection at its finest. I'm sorry to say that. I don't like it when people lose their jobs, but it's like boo fucking who sob story, right? We all have to live, like we have to all play the cards that we're dealt. And that's just the harsh reality of it. The world is not going to stop fucking spinning for you.
Yep.
Right? Sorry.
And Jay, isn't that what we're trying to teach people within our community? It's like you have to continue to work towards bettering yourself. You have to put in the work if you want to be financially free. You can't just sit behind a union, get your breaks, not have to work hard because you're not going to get fired, and expect a 70% raise.
Yeah.
Take responsibility for who you are and where you want to be in life.
Shout out to our good friend Farmer Jay. He's part of the electricians union over in California, and I'm sure that he would be saying the same thing, like same thing as us. Like if the union were to start laying off electrician guys, what he'd be doing? He'd be starting a private practice. He'd be starting his own little company. He wouldn't be bitching to the union masters about like, oh no, maybe the union reps would be bitching to the state of California or to the federal government and be like, oh yeah, you guys need us, blah blah. It reminds me of the horse-drawn plow sharpeners saying like, oh no, we need to keep using horse-drawn plows even though the tractors come along because like, damn it, we're the only ones that know how to make these sharpened horse-drawn plows. And it's just like, no, bro, like the world is changing. Suck it up. Like Pandora's box is open. The knowledge exists. Somebody's going to use it. So you can try your little contract. It's just like taxi drivers in New York City, They're going to be phased out eventually. Yeah, they're fighting tooth and nail to stay in there against Uber and against Lyft and against other people that are flying around with fucking drones picking up people like a claw machine.
Will, you know how crazy it is now? Uber is on, Uber is facing the threat of getting phased out by Waymo.
Yeah.
Okay?
There's a better system.
Do you realize how fast technology is moving? It's not going to Will said it really well there. Pandora's box has been open. You cannot put the cat back into the box. It will stay open. It will remain open. You either adapt or you will get left behind. We're not endorsing for that to happen. It's just the facts of the matter. It's what's going to happen whether you like it or you don't. So you could sit and cry and complain, or you can pivot. Your only two options.
I want to be clear here. When I refer to Pandora's box, it's an analogy that works great, but it's more of a good thing than it is a bad thing. Pandora's box opening brings a whole bunch of bad shit upon the world. What this does is this brings efficiency. This is bringing cost savings. This is making the world a more efficient place. And if it turns out that the part of the machine that the worker is like the slowest part of the whole thing, and we need to trim it to make more money, then that's it sucks. But get better skills, because again, like Jay just said, the world's not going to bend over backwards for you. It's up to you to go out there and get after it. You keep what you kill. If you rely on other people to fix the world for you, like these union guys, if they're relying on the union, they're relying on the government to pay them more money, then it's you have sacrificed your power to someone else, and you might get betrayed. Your best bet is to take care of yourself, to vote with your feet, to vote with your wallet, to vote with your skills, to vote with where you go, what you do, and the types of problems that you solve. So
True.
That's my 2
Excellent
cents on all
stuff,
that.
gang, on the adaptation, technology, and personal responsibility. You're always big fans of that. I am going to reel us back in, though. Back to the Fed. So let's talk about why are we talking about inflation in our quarterly thesis? And the reason that I say that is because inflation, similar to gold, is something that can drive you to an asset to hedge against it. So traditionally it's been gold. Now we have Bitcoin. Michael Saylor and a lot of other people are going to try to tell you that, well, they're not going to try. They will tell you, they will scream it at you, that Bitcoin is better than gold, and it is a better store of monetary economic value, or energy, if you will. So the fight against inflation is not over. The reason that we brought up those 2 current events items is to show you that the road ahead can change very quickly, and all the work that we've done to combat inflation can easily get wiped out if we're not careful. So with that being said, I think that we are doing a good job of getting inflation down. Therefore, people are going to be more willing to borrow money theoretically and have a little more economic energy going into stuff like moving, getting houses, swapping out, getting different interest rates, all that kind of stuff. So it's good for markets, which is also just good for overall like Bitcoin price and whatnot. But again, if inflation starts to go up, I would not be surprised if a lot of money starts moving into Bitcoin again.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we alluded to it a little bit earlier, right? Z, in your opening statements about the Fed. The reason why gold is breaking out is gold tends to have these moments in time when either there is rampant inflation going on, right? Or there's a scare of, or there's already a recession going on, right? These are the times in the market where you tend to see gold have these massive breakouts like it's doing now. So yes, the fight against inflation is not over. I mean, like a good example of this is what Z just said. What happened last week when we got the news of the strike? Well, suddenly you have another threat of supply chains being affected. And surprise, surprise, what was one of the big contributing factors to inflation running rampant during the last few years? Well, that was the kink in the supply chain issue, right? Which puts an upward pressure on prices because there's high demand, but there's not enough fucking shit on the shelves, right? So, like, that's one of the reasons why gold is breaking out. Number 2, we spoke about the volatility of the change in, okay, like last week we thought that we were going to get another 50-point cut during the November meeting, and now it's overwhelmingly in favor of 25. Look, there's if I was going to bet on something on Polymarket, I wouldn't be betting on the interest rates changes, right? Because the Fed is very reactive to the labor market, and the Fed is very reactive to inflation data coming in, and they're acting on lagging data. I think there's a very common theme here when it comes to the Fed. People tend to speculate the Fed is going to do this next meeting with rate cuts, and then labor market data comes in, inflation number data comes in, and then that thing changes significantly, right? It's a common theme. We thought we were lucky to get 125 BIP drop this year, and suddenly it's 100 bips in the next 3 meetings.
Oh yeah, that's a flip.
Right? That's a fucking flip. So don't put money definitely don't put money on the Fed doing what you think it's going to do, because they're not. Okay? I think that's been like this pretty obvious throughout this entire year, throughout the entire basically the bull market, right? That's number 2. Number 3. So here's I wanted to say something about something that the Z spoke about earlier, about how when one of the reporters asked Jerome Powell about how are you going to guarantee that the unemployment numbers stay below 4.5%? We give JP some shit when he gives kind of these flippant answers during the meetings, but here's the thing, and Z mentioned this a few episodes back as well. One of the key things that Jerome Powell talked about in the last meeting, right, when they dropped 50 bips, was one of the reasons why the unemployment numbers were actually going up wasn't because of the reasons that people were scared of, right? When people think unemployment, what do they usually think of? We think people losing their jobs because they're either getting laid off, right? Or they're losing their jobs because so they're getting fired, or they just can't find work, right? But Z mentioned that one of the biggest contributors to the unemployment numbers, and it happened again, right? Ben Cohen did a fantastic episode on this where he broke down the variables that contribute to the numbers. And what we now know is the unemployment number is not going up because people are losing their work because they're being laid off or they're quitting. What's happening is you have an influx of people, right? We have an influx of people coming in and companies are not hiring. There's not enough work to go around. So when you have more people looking for jobs and people are hiring, that's going to inflate the unemployment numbers. But that's not necessarily why people are scared, right? If the number was going up because people are losing their work, they're getting laid off, that'd be a different story. But if the number is going up because we have more people coming in, whether legally or illegally, and they just can't happen to find work, right? That's a bit different, right? That's a different context. That's a significantly different context, right? It's so like it's not scaring me in the way that it would if the number was going up because the economy is suffering. People can't afford to companies can't afford to hire. They can't afford to pay their workers, and so they're just laying off. They're trimming the fat at the bottom. No, the number is going up significantly because more people are coming in, and just companies are just there's not enough work to go around, right? So it's gonna inflate the numbers.
That's true.
Right?
When you dive into the current unemployment numbers, you actually see two things. One is that low skill, farm type labor, is one of the things that is making up or helping keep the unemployment rate down, which is that a lot, almost a majority of the jobs that have been gained over the last few years are actually on the level of low skill, low wage labor jobs that illegal immigration kind of helps fill that niche. It's not even a political issue on this one. It's just the fact that certain markets and economies need a low wage labor base to do the jobs that some people just honestly frown upon if it's a societal thing, or it's just not complex. And then the other half of that equation is that the other part of the jobs that were gained were the governmental jobs, which is that it's not new businesses opening up. What it is the government expanding and creating jobs and jobs programs for whatever bureaus or agencies are running that need just bodies to do the job. So
yeah, like the 80,000 IRS agency.
Yeah, like the 80,000 IRS agents. I will also just keep clowning on them because I want people to go see the videos of training new IRS agents. And again, these are card-carrying, gun-wielding IRS agents that can show up to your door. There's video of them doing training where it's a bunch of fat people in soft body armor flagging each other to hell with their weapons drawn for no
Jesus
good reason.
Christ.
I know. It's just remember, this is the tax dollars. This is who's coming after you, by the way. It's like, ugh. I guess so. Here's my final point on inflation or unemployment as well, which is that a certain level of unemployment is actually a good thing because it's called transitional unemployment, aka there is natural job switching going on, and that's a sign of a good economy because it means that there's growth, there's constant growing and dying of old trees to be replaced by new trees, or businesses in this case rather, that need people, need bodies, need labor, need talent. So some level of unemployment is good. Not a high level, but some level where people are actually able to switch jobs. Because, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but unemployment actually stops counting people after they've been unsuccessfully job seeking for either 6 or 12 months. One of those two?
I don't remember the date, but yes.
Yeah.
But the point is that if you are unemployed for too long, you literally fall out of the data pool. You are no longer counted as unemployed. You're just out of the workforce entirely.
Yeah.
And actually, Zenith, it's a good point because after COVID, there's a lot of people that never found work and never went back, but they're not counted in the data anymore. And so if you look at a lot of articles about the unemployment data, it's showing lower than it probably really is. I won't even say a friend, someone I know on Facebook, and he's been looking for a job for so long and he's about to give up. He's about to go try to do something else. He's not counted in those numbers. And there's a lot of people like that. So it's interesting that, again, numbers aren't always indicative of a full picture. And so you have to take it with a grain of salt a little bit.
Yeah,
that's true.
You can gerrymander the data to paint any picture you want, to tell any narrative that you want. So just keep that in mind.
And Jay, we've been saying that, right? Changing how inflation's get. I say this way too much. And I apologize. I'm literally beating a dead horse. But if you continue to change how inflation data is calculated, then yeah, it's going to look better.
Agreed. I got two kind of video shout outs on this one. some videos that I've watched recently that help me kind of understand and be able to better articulate what's going on with data and sentiment regarding the market and how people feel about it versus what the numbers actually show. Is the first one is a streamer called Atrioc. He does Market Monday streams. He does a lot of like marketing stuff, looks at overall conditions and whatnot. I would love to have that guy on the channel, by the way. And he's like kind of like anti-crypto, not like anti-crypto, but he's like a market trader guy, and he's like, just crypto's not the place to be right now. So that kind of sentiment. Although he does also, I think he does clown on NFTs, which I am also happy to do in a lot of cases. But the point is that he has a video called Slowly Then All at Once. And it's talking about the idea that in particular, there's one segment where he talks about a interview with Jeff Bezos, where Jeff Bezos says, if you are getting feedback from your customers or users, but it's not matching your data, but you don't necessarily have bad data. What you have is data that's probably not properly measuring whatever it is you're looking at. So when you have that, you should probably trust on the anecdotes and try to figure out how to measure the things that better reflect the sentiment so you can actually gauge it. The other one on this one is, I know some people call him a crack smoking historian, but I like What If Alt Hiss.
Sorry.
I mean, yeah, he has a video called What the Hell is Going On with the Economy. He talks about how there's always been a balance between capital and labor, and whenever one is more dominant than the other, you start to see some odd effects. And right now what we're kind of seeing is we have a capital market where capital is outperforming labor by a large margin. So what you have is a lot of people just struggling to make ends meet. But as a result of the economy still going up and up and up, all that economic energy is just directed into the stock price and capital assets that continue to increase in cost regardless of the other economic conditions on the ground.
Which is why you have to become part of the capital class, which is why we have a channel talking about crypto. Because
I'm still trying to get over crack smoking historian. It's just fucking funny as hell. I'm sorry. I'm gonna mute myself. Keep going.
You're good. All right, that's pretty much all I got. I do want to bring up the macro econ calendar because I think this is actually perfectly tied into what we're talking about here. So we have the data releases for unemployment numbers and the inflation numbers. You'll notice it only happens once a month, and it only measures the past month. So between now and the next meeting, I think we're going to get 2 more unemployment numbers and 1 more inflation number. Again, keep in mind, it measures stuff from the last month. So if we only have 1 more inflation data report before the next FOMC meeting, then that means that we're not even going to see the impact of the last FOMC meeting in the data yet. And on top of that, this is slow-moving data. This is measuring the entire economy, which means that we're probably not going to get a good vision or a good picture on the impact of the changes or the shift in strategy that started like last month. We're probably not going to see that until 2025, to be honest. I know it's a bit of a black pill take on that, but I think that's the situation on the ground.
No, I mean, that's not a black pill take at all. That's just the facts of the matter. The government moves on extremely lagging indicators. So yeah, you're probably not going to see the effects of this monetary easing policy until probably Q3 of next year. Earliest Q2, I would say.
That's true. So it's an interesting thing to take into consideration because we're, like we showed earlier, we're anticipating more rate cuts, like 2 more rate cuts. The market has already priced and factored it in, and they're planning on it. But we're not going to see the effects of the strategy shift for like 2-3 months. So if we're going to keep hammering down on that strategy shift, it means that if it's incorrect, we're not going to know for a few months. And at that point, it's going to take even longer to correct or make the adjustments. And then when those adjustments are going to be made, it's going to take even longer to see if they were correct in the first place.
Yep.
So it's this weird... It's like driving big boats. When you have that 1,000-foot tanker that's full of fuel, it takes 20 minutes to stop that thing because the momentum is so large and the amount of input that you can put in based on the engines is just so small in comparison, which is you're going to like go full throttle reverse for like 20 minutes, and then only then will you actually stop and start to go in a different direction.
Yep. That's a fantastic analogy.
I like that.
All right, Brendan, you got thoughts on this one? You had a little blurb here, so I want to pass it
Yeah,
on.
yeah, not too much. Look, we either want to see downward unemployment or at least stable. We don't want it to tick up. And like you said, as we continue to expect and the market's priced in more cuts, we still need to really pay attention to the core inflation numbers because status quo, continuing the direction we're going, means more quantitative easing. If we start to see a little uptick in core inflation, we might only see 1 more cut this year, and then maybe there's a little bit of a worry. But like you said, data's lagging, we might not have enough information until it's too late. So I'd be surprised if we got 4 more cuts in a row, as the market is betting on. But if numbers still look good, it could happen.
True. All right, gang, let's keep it going. I want to talk about the old Bitcoin halving effect. So we are now 6 months post the halving, which is good stuff.
Yes,
We're
sir.
We're looking at the reduction in supply, difference in the mining economics and profitability, price impact, and the new all-time highs, and the idea of digital gold. So, Brendan, I believe we got a note from you down here. Said, the halving is a fundamental aspect of Bitcoin designed to ensure controlled supply and promote scarcity. Its effects are multifaceted, influencing price dynamics, miner economics, network security, and market sentiment. While historically, halvings have generally been associated with significant price increases, about new all-time highs about 1 year after, and increased media attention. However, past performance is no indication of future gain. Well said, sir. So, I like this chart. This is a very good one. What we have here is we have the entirety of the Bitcoin history, and we specifically have 1 year before and 1 year after each of the halving dates. So what we see is pretty traditional stuff, which is that a year after the halving, if we have not made all-time highs, we are working towards it, and we're about to hit that blow off top and keep going higher and higher and higher. The only difference is that this year, we've already made new all-time highs before we even hit the halving. So it's, again, same chart. The yellow arrow is going to be your Bitcoin halving dates, and this is the 1 month chart. What we see is that we're already up here at about $60,000, even though we made that new all-time high. Oh gosh, what was it? 74 and change, I want to say.
Yep. 74 and change.
And for the last 6 months, we've been largely sideways to slightly down, including some really big wicks to the low side, including the very recent local low of $49,500 in Bitcoin. That was something that a lot of people did not see coming in. If anything, it's this weird dynamic right now, which is that we went up so fast, or so high so fast early in the year thanks to the ETFs, that a lot of people are kind of trying to figure out if this strategy is still valid. I personally think it is. I just don't think we're going to see as much of an initial pump. But once it actually starts going, that's when you really see all the gains to be made. But it's not going to be as gradual as these previous ones. I think it's just going to be more vertical, more suddenly. What do you guys think?
I mean, here's the thing. I think retail was probably not expecting. We speak about this quite often here on the channel, right? When you consider the market sentiment overall, you take a look at social media, you take a look at legacy media. What are they talking about? Are they talking about price go up into the right forever? That's probably the time when you know the market is getting severely overheated, and it's probably time to de-risk a little bit of your bags, right? We were very open about doing this around March when shit really started to overheat, right? And that was reflected in the metrics that I just spoke about, legacy media, social media. It was reflected on the charts, right? The weekly RSI was in the oversold region. The fear and greed index was hitting in the 80s, I believe 90s. On a few days, we had significant bearish divergence in the very large momentum indicators, like in smaller time frames like the daily to the weekly time frames that we were tracking. So everything from the technicals to the sentiment that we were hearing in the market, in socials, was telling us, look, the market is getting severely overheated, which is a tendency for things, it tends to happen when price moves up that aggressively that fast, right? So I don't think it was a surprise for any of us. In terms of the price action post halving that Z said, we spoke about this a little bit during the Tuesday Telegram call earlier last week, right? Which is why we encourage you guys to jump into Telegram, because the Telegram group tends to get some of this alpha first. If you take a look at the price performance, Q4 of the halving year for Bitcoin is always green, right? And when you take a look at Q4, every single time that September has been green, right? There's not a lot of data points there, right? But every single time September has been green, October has been green, November has been green, December has been green, right? Again, small handful of data points here, so take that with a grain of salt. But Bitcoin is batting 1,000 when it comes to a green Q4, right? If September closes green. So, correlation is not causation, but the coefficient is at 1, right? It's at 1 right now. That's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, Jay, to your point exactly. We have 3 prior years where that was exactly true, and we have only one other year where it was not exactly true, but we still had a green Q4, and that's going to be shoot, where'd you go? Right here, 2020. So 2020, we actually had September close red, and then had an all green Q4. That's the only data point against, but yeah, if you look up at the top, September, we definitely closed green, and then people are talking about October. Right now, it's not looking great, but at the same time, it's entirely possible based on the previous indicators. So we have no reason to believe that the trend has been invalidated until we have confirmation. So until then, good chance.
And look, we had a strong look. We just had a strong weekly close in Bitcoin. You know, we're back up over 63,500, and that's positive. But you know, I also try to look more at the numbers in the halving years. So 2016, 2020. Right, because I think those are a little bit more. I think that data is a little bit more important because it's similar things that have happened and are happening, and those look very strong in Q4 in both 2016 and 2020.
And if you think that time frame is too short, take a look at the gains Q4 into Q1 of the post-halving year. You got a lot more data points there. And they tend to be significantly green.
True.
Yep.
Yeah. The data that is on screen, by the way, is from CoinGlass. They actually track the data when it comes to whether it's the year, the quarter. They have Bitcoin, they have Ethereum, and this is it's a decent way to get a good visual representation of what goes on. Because especially on the quarterly chart, you can really see when we have those blow off tops and whatnot. When you have quarters start going anywhere up of 100%, that's a 2x right there. So that's a doubling in price. And then most recently, we haven't had one of those since 2021, but we might be about due for one. So who knows?
Yep. So this is the time to. It's like just sit back, relax. For a lot of people, like there's a lot of people in our chat. This is their first cycle. Right, so they've never experienced what it's like to have the post-halving year fever really hit the market when Bitcoin starts to finally take a back seat to the altcoin space, right? When that dominance starts to go down precipitously and then the altcoins start to run heavily, right? Like a lot of people, they have not experienced that. This 4-year cycle, like this bull market has not been particularly kind to some assets, right? But a lot of people are still questioning, are we actually in a bull market or not? Just like, bro, you're almost at the finish line. Just like sit back, relax. You will get your turn. Just don't get footed out of your bags.
True. Final point of order I want to talk about before we toss it over to TA with Jay is I want to talk about the ETFs, and specifically we have the 2 big ones. We got Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think we had a lot of hope for the Ethereum ETF, and it's been largely a disappointment. It's looking like it might be able to turn around, but up until this point, the Bitcoin ETF has been far and away the one that has just absolutely dominated the entire thing. And again, this is like it's not like, it is the most profitable ETF launch in human history by far. And I think that we're going to continue to see more ETFs. People talked about the Solana ETFs, pulling the Solana ETFs. People talking about maybe the next ETFs we see are actually a conglomeration of different tokens as spots instead of just single tokens. But until we see the
coming soon,
maybe it's entirely possible. But personally, I think that until we see the Ethereum ETF overcome its massive negative outflows, I think that's going to be the main holdup for the ETFs. Right now, what we have seen is that the Grayscale ETF on the Ethereum side was the one that's been doing a vast majority of the selling. But the good news is that within the last month or two, we've actually seen the net inflows start to equal the net outflows. So this could be the start of the tipping point, which is that there's going to be more money going into the Ethereum ETFs as opposed to out. But until we get confirmation of that, again, the trend is going to continue, and it seems like the price might keep getting dumped for a little bit. But outside of that, though, shoot, it's hard not to look at the Bitcoin ETFs and just be like, wow, that is a lot of money.
Yep. Billions of dollars flowing through those damn things every single day.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Just over 24 hours, I want to say, we might see $800 million going into the IBIT one.
That's just IBIT.
Yeah, Grayscale did another $100 million. A bunch of the other ones. I think this is Fidelity Bitcoin also did 150 million roughly. So it's like the money is flowing into Bitcoin ETF. I wish it would flow more in the Ethereum ETF, but I think just the brand name and the value recognition, or sorry, the value and the brand name. Yeah, first best dressed. And it's also just the biggest one in the market, which is very appealing to the larger investors in my personal opinion.
Also, look at Ethereum. Who's out there? Name a big name that's out there saying, hey, buy Ethereum. It's the only asset, right? With Bitcoin, you have Michael Saylor, you have El Salvador, you have the history, you have the first mover, right? You have a lot when it comes to Bitcoin. With Ethereum, we don't have that cheerleader. You have Vitalik dating Asians and dumping on your head recently, right? Like nothing is going well for Ethereum right now. That doesn't necessarily mean that's not going to be good shortly. It probably means buy now, right? Because when people are not talking about something, when something seems depressed, it's usually before a pop-off, not financial advice. But let's be honest, like Bitcoin has a very different news cycle than Ethereum. Ethereum's almost quiet. Like nobody in the mainstream media talks about Ethereum, and Bitcoin is all over the place. So it's not surprising to me that the Bitcoin ETFs, which are normies, like true normies, right? That's where the money is flowing into. So hopefully we see a change there. If Bitcoin hits 100,000, and they might want to start rotating money into something else, then you might start hearing more about it. But right now, no, there's no Michael Saylor for Ethereum.
Yeah, a bit of a very I don't want to say pessimistic because I think this is fairly realistic. I think what we're going to see within the next 48 years is something very similar to what we saw when the tech bubble popped, right? When the .com bubble popped, where there was a significant influx of startups coming into the space. Like in this case, you have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of different coins being created every single day. I think that bubble is going to pop, and you are going to get a severe culling of the space where you're going to lose some of these names that you're used to seeing in the top 20 assets by market cap. Some of these things are going to disappear, man. Right? I don't think that's being pessimistic. I think that's just the inevitability, right? Because some of these assets, man, they're not going to get with the program, right? They're not going to know how to market themselves. They're not going to know how to compete with the L2s and the fucking L3s that's going to be popping up. They're not going to know how to compete with the space, right?
Not only that, but Jay, look at this current cycle. Like even in the bear market, we didn't see a lot of coins just fail, right? Look at the previous bear markets. There were almost like 90% of coins failed. We had a lot more staying power in coins this cycle, which means that there's more being built. And now we're starting to see some new names out there that are really starting to come out. Look at what Grayscale is talking about. So yeah, I think that we're maybe having too many projects right now that haven't failed. And so we're creating a bit of a bubble for some point in the future is my point.
Yeah. Remember, when this space was still small, you didn't have to do too much to compete for market share. Now you do. And guess who's front and center? Getting all the attention. It's Bitcoin. And so unless you are a standout in this space, right? Unless you come out with something that really says, look, we are at the bleeding edge. We are the next big thing. Last year it was AI. This year it was RWAs. You're going to get phased out. Sorry to say, but we had this conversation about natural selection earlier, right? It's going to happen in the crypto space.
The culling process exists as it is. We typically see it every cycle. It's going to keep happening every cycle. And
that's for the good of the space, right? I would say, Z, like, would you guys agree with me? I think that's for the good of the space, because what's one of our primary concerns here? People getting fucking rugged, right? What's the thing that Gary Gensler always harps on about, right? The industry is filled with fraudsters, scam artists, right? That type of stuff. And so what culling the space will inevitably do is it's going to phase out a lot of those fucking scammers, right? So I think it's good.
All the shitty scammers. It'll phase out all the shitty scammers.
There you go.
Correct.
It's like the whole, every time you kill a mosquito, you make the rest of them stronger, because that one was too slow.
And Jay, you said real world assets was this cycle. I'd counter with memes might have been this cycle so far.
Oh, memes is big too. Yes, correct. But they made more of an impact 2023. I think the RWAs was a bigger narrative in 2024. But memes, obviously, like they're always going to be there, right? Memes for sure. I mean,
I think this is the biggest meme cycle though, because like we haven't had like true alts really haven't had a pump. Like we had huge meme increases, but that's where a lot of money is filtering, not into the true like hardened good assets, in my opinion.
Yeah. Notice that most major L1s have a meme attached to them, right? Bitcoin has Doge, Ethereum has several, right? Sheeb, Pepe is the big one for Ethereum. Solana has Whip. Popcat. Base has is it Brett on Base?
Ooh.
Is it Brett?
Brett was big.
Base has a few.
I think so.
Right?
Doesn't matter where it is. It sticks. It's in your fucking head because it's got mimetic value. If you're thinking about it, it's got mimetic value.
Yep, mimetic value. That is absolutely correct there, Will. So yeah, memes were pretty much one of the prevailing narratives this cycle. So it was memes, AI, RWAs. Those were like the really big ticket things. So yeah, man, like if you're not creating a narrative surrounding your asset class, right? Your particular niche in the space, you're not going to last. You're like, sorry, man. Not everybody here's for the tech. Okay, like make peace with that. For God's sakes, make peace with the fact that most of the people in this space don't care about the tech. It is a fortunate byproduct of green candles. All right. So unless you have something that captures the zeitgeist of retail, you're not going to be here for a long time. You might be here for a good time, for a very short amount of time. You're not going to be here for a long time. Sorry. That's why I think Pulse Chain and the Pulse Chain ecosystem has huge opportunity, because you have a cult-like following. You have a founder that is very, very outgoing, speaks his mind, draws people in, good or bad, gets eyes on the platform. And the technology, let's not lie, is very good and no downtime, very strong. So like the technology in that sense is good, but it isn't the leading narrative, right? Mm-hmm. And so you need it to back up what, if you want to continue and to be a good builder long term, you need that good technology, but it's not what's going to bring people into the space first, right? Richard Hart, the community, the cult-like atmosphere, maybe even some of the memes, but without uptime, without low gas fees, without good throughput, right? Without fast transactions, it's not going to keep people in the ecosystem. So I think both are important. If you want to build something that's going to go 100 to 1,000x or 50 to 1,000x, not financial advice. I mean, that's very possible for this ecosystem, right? 50x is very possible, in my opinion, from the lows. Yeah. I spoke about this like theme with one of my female clients. I told her, like, if you're concerned about obviously using your sexuality to draw in people, but like, look, if you want to compete in this space, it might be something you have to consider. Draw them in with honey, make them stay for the content that you produce outside of it, right? Like, you know, the whole clickbait thing, right? Use the clickbait for people to click on your shit, make them stay because, oh, you're providing value outside of like the clickbait, outside of like the very provocative picture. That's how you make people say it's the same thing, right? Like bring people in with like the narrative that they can rally behind, but then you get them to say like, oh, wow, the founder is really about the ethos of crypto. It's about decentralization. It's about fast and cheap transaction, good throughput. It's about complete sovereign, like self-sovereignty, right? It's about freedom of speech, freedom of movement. Like that's the foundation. If you build on that foundation, right? That's what's going to keep you around for a long time. But you're gonna need to bring the eyes in, man. Right? You're gonna have to lure them in. Like you're gonna have to lure them in with a meme or a sexy picture or something.
We got to throw this back to an Alex. To throw it to an Alex Ramosi quote, it's that if you're in business long enough, you discover what the business actually is. And unfortunately, building the crypto stuff, it's not actually about the tech. In my personal opinion, I think it's largely about marketing. And I think a lot of things are. This is none different. All right, gentlemen, I apologize to cut it short here, but we got to keep it going. We still got a lot to get to. But first off, we're going to hit out chat shoutouts. We see all you guys out there, and we want to make sure that we recognize you and see some of these excellent ideas you have going on. So, with that being said, Mrs. Producer, if you don't mind. First up, we got Tam Tam. Snuck in right after we did our first chat shoutouts, but we're not going to miss you nonetheless. Good to see you, Tam Tam. This is our #1 cheerleader in the space, by the way, and we are very, very happy to have you here with us. All right, up next, We got Tin Top says, "What's up, Hexkins? Good to see you, my man. The peace as always." Next, we got Conspiracy Crypto, aka Ramon, saying, "Sup, fam? Good to see you, boy. How you doing?" After that, we got Paul Sachs, another lad, another good friend of the channel and very frequent shower. He says, "Good to see you, boys. Good to see you, Paul Sachs." Frank White, the classic Bang Bang Degen gang. Good to see you, man. We got another classic, Moon Mutt. Good to see you, Degens, tonight. Always good to see you guys. Crypto Compassion had a highlight from we were talking about how Kamala Harris speaks. She said it was the word salad. Says a lot with saying little. All right.
I'm from a middle class family.
If that's the start to your answer, I'm all automatically uninterested in the rest of it because I know it's just going to be nothing.
Yeah.
We got Dr. H, the crypto practor. He says, "Hey, UF and Degens, what's good?"
Yes.
Life's pretty
Dr.
good, my
H.
man. Yeah, Dr. H is great. By the way, shout out to him and his channel. He just finished up his series covering the richest man in Babylon. Was doing a chapter by chapter breakdown on a weekly basis, and it is fantastic stuff. I think he even got RG3 in there for one of the last episodes.
He did a stream today about what's going on in like the area that was Babylon as it is today. It was pretty damn cool. So shout out to Dr. H. You guys will see whenever he goes live. I'll post I try my best to post a link in our Degen Roundtable links announcement stream whatever chat thing. So
Yeah, you posted it in the video game chat today for whatever reason.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops. All right. Well, shout out to I was already active in there, so that might have been it. But yeah, good job, Dr. H. We'd love to see it.
Like it. All right, we got Paul Sachs saying, "Don't forget, the politicians in DC know that the largest group of donors, both last cycle and this cycle, are crypto bros by a large margin." Agreed.
You think? I don't know if I have that. I don't know if I have that much faith that they're smart enough to put two and two together.
This is like one of the great untold secrets: is that politicians they're not cut from a better swath of cloth. They are the average person that just happened to get elected. There are some that are very smart. There are some that are very middling, and there are some that I personally think are a few fries short of a Happy Meal. But that's neither here nor there. But I will say this. I think Paul Sachs is entirely correct with this one. The FTX scandal, if anything, showed the level of wealth and affluence and power that the crypto community is willing to wield and throw into politics. I think Sam Bankman-Fried alone put like $100 million into political races in 2022, I want to say. So there's a lot of potential economic energy that can be wielded for good or evil, depending on how you do it. And I think the politicians are starting to recognize that for sure.
Wait, he put in money that he didn't have, and did the government give that back?
Oh, sorry, that's right. I misspoke. He didn't put in his money. He put in your money that you gave him to hold on to. That's what it was. Yeah. Son of a gun. All right, two more. We got Ray saying Bitcoin's starting to move. We will take a look at that very soon. Jay is going to be taking it away with technical analysis after I get through this. And then finally, we got Taylor throwing us a shaka. Hanging loose, brother. Hanging loose. All right, Mr. Great Value Technical Analyst. Let's check out some of this Bitcoin stuff that people are talking about. I hear it might be valuable.
Let's do it. Bitcoin is indeed moving. So I'm going to give you guys like the quick TLDR, and I'm going to give you something that has a little bit more substance. So like we've been speaking about for the entire stream, right? What are we expecting out of Q4? I've got my chart pulled up here. So give me 1 second. Oh, I think I already have it pulled up. Just waiting on Mrs. Producer or one of our co-producers to pull it up. There we go. Okay, so the short TLDR is you can expect Q4, if the pattern holds, that this is going to be up and to the right, right? That's like literally the TLDR of this entire stream, right? Historically speaking, Q4 of the halving year tends to be green, right? Especially since we had a green close to finish off Q3. That September monthly candle was green. Then again, Bitcoin has been batting 1,000 for the most part. If September closed green, October, November, December closed green as well, right? On the short term, we are day number 31 of the 60-day cycle with a high here currently on day number 21. So we got rejected here, right, at about 66,000, just slightly above the middle of the range that we were trading in way back here, right? The range that was formed since our all-time high, right? That pivot point was that $65,000 area. And that's around where we got rejected. And we came down actually below the 20-day moving average. Let me turn on the Bollinger Bands here, right? And you can see that the price is now starting to recover that. So if we were to get rejected, right? If we were not going to take this 21-day cycle high, right, within the next few weeks or so, let's say we come up here, we get rejected somewhere around, I would say, like $65,000, right? The middle of that range, once again, forming very stiff resistance for Bitcoin, right? If we get rejected there, what I would expect is we would probably come down into a cycle low. We lose a 20-day moving average. Price will come down here. Give me a second. Price will come down here, right? And probably make contact with this trend line, with this downward sloping trend line that we broke out of here in the 18th of September, right? So that would, my estimates for a left translated cycle sometime in October, I would start looking for a cycle low sometime around the 3rd week of October, right? To the 26th, right? Around between day 40 and day 50 for left translated cycles is where I start to look for a cycle low, right? So if we do get rejected around that $65,000 area, we don't break this cycle high, then we probably take this low of $59,000 and make contact and bounce off of this downward sloping trend line that we broke out of, right? So let's take a little bit more, what do the fibs say in terms of potential price targets to the downside, right? So we have that trend line as a potential target, right? Right here, you can see that we already made contact with the 382 fib here, taken from our last swing low. And so that's the minimum fib level that we look for retracement when it comes to a local wave 2. So at the very least, we hit that 382 level. But at the lowest, I would probably think that Bitcoin does not, if we lose 60,000, right? I think Bitcoin probably goes at lowest around 57,500, because that would correspond with your 0.68 fib, right? That's usually a common fib target for price to head down to during local wave 2s. And you can also see that this local, this 0.618 fib also lines up with the bottom of our parallel range here that we were basically trading in since early August, right? So the bottom of that range here. Okay, so I would say your targets for Bitcoin, if we head to the downside, right? I would not expect Bitcoin to go lower than that 57,500, that 618 fib, if we lose 60,000, right? But as you can see, we are currently breaking out. We are trying to reclaim that 20-day moving average. And so if Bitcoin managed, right, to take this cycle high of 66,000, let me get you an exact number, right? If we were to reclaim the cycle high of 66,508 sometime within the next 1 or 2 weeks, then I would expect us to keep heading up towards that $70,000 area. That's my first target, right? $70,000 psychological support, very top of that parallel range, right? I would expect us to keep heading up and look for a cycle high all the way up until the 1st week of November, right? And then we'll reevaluate afterwards. Okay, so right now, the number to look out for for Bitcoin is for Bitcoin to reclaim the cycle high of 66,508. If we can knock out that cycle high, remember, we are already in day 31. If we take that cycle high, that confirms a right translated cycle, and we are going to keep looking for higher prices all the way up until 70,000. That's my first area of major resistance I see for Bitcoin if we reclaim this $66,000 area, right? Probably up until the 1st week of November, right? So depending on how impulsive that move is, we could head into a extended cycle all the way up into the 15th of November. So 2nd week in November. All right. So that's within the shorter time frame, right? But bigger time frame wise, in terms of like Q4 in general, like I've already said, that's basically the TLDR, is you're going to look for a green Q4. So look forward to a lot of green candles over the next few months. Right now, Bitcoin is holding strong. We are well above I believe we actually are above the 20-week moving average, right? Look at this. Very, very good sign, right? Even though we closed last week red, what do you notice? We closed the week above the 20-week moving average, which is a good sign, right? And so if Bitcoin can maintain the 20-week moving average at 62,480, then you can expect price to try and reclaim the cycle high here, right? And you can also expect altcoins to either move sideways or keep going up, right? Above the 20-week moving average, usually a good sign for altcoins, right? So right now, Bitcoin is basically above all of our like major moving averages that we like to keep track of, right? Me and Z like to keep track of the 20-week moving average. We like to keep track of the 111-day, which Bitcoin is above. Let's actually see where the 200-day is sitting currently, right? But I'm pretty sure Bitcoin is above the 200-day moving average as well. Let me toggle on the 200, right?
Exactly at the 200-day moving average.
Exactly at the 200-day. Yep. Right? So what do we know about the 200-day moving average? We know that during bull markets, price tends to stay above the 200-day for the majority of the bull market, right? And that has been the case. Outside of very specific times, like the macro wave 2 and the macro wave 4 that we seem to have finished, right? And so if Bitcoin can reclaim and start closing strongly consecutive days above the 200-day moving average, right now sitting at 63,552, then we have a strong shot of reclaiming not only taking this last 60-day cycle high, right? I know that we did technically break the downtrend here, but reclaiming the last 60-day cycle high of $70,000, surprise, surprise, right? 70,000. That is the more important number to reclaim, right? Because that would actually break us out of the consecutive 60-day cycle lower highs. Right? So that's the number to really look out for. Once we reclaim $70,000, watch out. Z, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so the things that I'm looking for with Bitcoin are twofold. One is price, the other is time. The first one is the 60-day cycles. I think that it's oddly suspicious that the 60-day cycle, or day 60 of the one that we're on right now, theoretically is on election day, November 5th. So if that's the case, I wouldn't be surprised to actually see some sort of news or some sort of event actually help print that cycle low there. Additionally, after that, what that means is that if we have an early November day finish to the cycle, that means that another 60-day cycle is pretty much just going to carry us through the rest of the year, and then we're going to get a fresh cycle sometime in like early mid-January.
Yes, sir.
So assuming that stays true, we're realistically looking at like a cycle and a half more to go from here, which is we're going to have one more final low, and then we're going to go up. I think it's a very likely possibility that we've finished our accumulation and that we are going to actually reclaim that 200-day moving average and stay above it. This is something you mentioned, which is that the price that we're at right now, comparatively to our indicators, shows that we are in an extreme buying opportunity, or that we have been traditionally based on how it's reacted in the past. What I mean by that is that we really don't go below the 200-day moving average in a bull market, which, guess what? We're in. But we've pretty much been below the 200-day moving average for almost like 3-4 months at this point, which is very odd. So when we had the initial dip back in July 4th, I want to say, a lot of people were saying like this might be the last chance to get in at like good prices, even though we've already kind of gone up thanks to the ETF hype. But then we had another double tap all the way down to that 49,000 level in early August. And again, we had another decent buying opportunity at the beginning of September. I mean, we can't really read the crystal ball and predict the future, but at the end of the day, we might not get that many more good buying opportunities, so it's kind of, it might be a little foolish to count on another one to come.
Here's the thing, Z, like I mentioned earlier, the times when we go below the 200-day during a bull market are at very obvious times. Macro wave 2, macro wave 4, which we just theoretically finished, right? Unless we get another significant leg down, which is like unlikely at this point. Right. Again, just historically speaking, based on the price performance during Q4 of the post-halving year and during times when we've had a September green monthly close. Right. So highly unlikely. If we do get a left translated cycle, I think the important thing to consider is that we have to have a higher low. Right. We cannot sweep. The let me double check here. What is that number specifically? All right. We cannot sweep the 52,546 low, right? We have to close a higher low for this if we have a left translated cycle, right? That is key. If we can maintain that higher high, higher low structure, then it's off to the races.
It's true. Let me finish this real quick. Sorry. What I'm looking at with price is I think that there's two things that I care about with price. One's the upper end, the one is the other, the bottom end. So to show that we're actually breaking out of the accumulation zone right here, what I want to see is I want to see this cycle that we're in right now have a high that's higher than $68,000. If we are unable to break that level, what that means is that the downtrend or the generalized weakness of the Bitcoin market is going to continue. We've made lower and lower cycle highs ever since we hit all-time highs back in March, excuse me. So we have to change that pattern before we can start moving to the upside. Because other than that, it's just going to keep grinding and chopping sideways and slightly down. On the downside, what we're talking about, I've got mapped out a few areas of support that I think are possible to retain. The first one is our most recent cycle low, 52,500 or whatever. Next one is right at about 50,500. That's a bit of an older support level that we briefly wicked below during that August big crash. And then below that, I have $48,000, which is, again, a zone that was flipped from a previous high back in January of this year. So that's what I'm looking at there. If we ever break through all three of those, we're probably going to 38K.
Yeah,
that's why
I said it's important that last cycle low that you mentioned, right? The 52.5 area, like we cannot sweep that low. If you want to maintain the higher high, higher low structure, like the new uptrend supposedly that we're forming, you cannot sweep that low, right? Which is, you also mentioned it, right? Yes, we are technically out of the downtrend, but the bigger number to consider is the last 60-day cycle high. That was at 70,000, right? If you want a strong established uptrend, then you need to reclaim that last 60-day cycle high, right?
Exactly.
That is the number to beat.
Exactly. What I'm hoping to see out of the market is that we start building. If we don't start building cycles that will stack on top of each other, we're going to continue the current trend of sideways. So, like exactly what we're talking about, breaking above 68, 70, 72 maybe, even if we get real wild with it. We got to start making it back up to these higher levels to show that the energy level is not going down and instead it's going up.
Yep.
Can I add
Brendan,
something?
What you got? Please do. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, it's all good. I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't know if you guys, I didn't know if you were going to hop back in.
Do it.
There's a couple things. We went up really high really quickly. Think about 3-4 months ago. We didn't have any sideways action. We didn't even have any pullbacks, right? We just had pretty much straight up and to the right until we hit the new all-time high of 70,000-ish. And what were we saying? We needed, it would be healthy for Bitcoin to start to build a base. Well, this sideways action isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? This is a base that we're building. Anytime that you chop sideways for this long, in my opinion, especially when you're in a bull market, you're generally going to start to move to the upside at some point. Now, that could happen at any point. Could it happen this Q4? Could we hit 70? Could we hit 80? Could we hit 90,000? I certainly think we can. But I'm not upset about sideways action completely. Has it been a little bit more sideways now than I want? Yes. But again, 3 months ago, I was saying we need a little bit more of a pullback, which we got. We need a little bit more of a get back up close. We need those resistance levels to start to build because that's going to build a foundation for us to springboard off of. And I think we're there. I think we're at a point where we're really close. And at any point, we can springboard now. So could we, October, November, December, get to that 70, 80, 90,000 K? I think that's certainly a possibility. Am I saying that it's definitely going to happen? No, but I think that we're building something in these channels that's very strong. Again, we do have to be worried, like you said, Jay and Z, that if we start to wick down and take these lows in some of these cycles, that could be worrisome. But until we do that, I'm looking on a very strong positive momentum in that this sideways action is kind of just waiting for it to break. Now, hopefully it breaks to the upside, right? That's always the hope. In a bull market, it usually does. And so I'm excited because I do think in the next few months, we're going to see new all-time highs. That is my Q4 prediction. Jay-Z, what do you guys think? Do you think we're going to see new all-time highs here in Q4? Since this is a Q4 thesis show?
You made a really good argument there that I don't want to brush past too fast, though, which is the idea of building the base. With sideways action, building the base is a super solid argument. I would agree. The only nuance I'm going to add to this is I would say that I think Bitcoin is a bit of a crumbling base because we keep seeing those lower and lowers, cycle lows. But an example of exactly what you're talking about, I think, is Solana. Solana has absolutely concrete foundation level of $120. It like very, very rarely wicks below that. And then for the last like 6-7 months, it has just absolutely cemented that level. That is a very solid base. Something like Bitcoin, it's a little crumbling. And honestly, something like Ethereum is even a weaker base than that, because we dropped it back. We hit all the way up to 4,000, and then we dropped down, and we kept like flirting with that 2,800 level, and then we dropped below it, and now we just changed our trading range entirely. So we are actually, Ethereum is in a place that's actually weaker than it was earlier in the year, as opposed to stuff like Solana and even Bitcoin, which are still maintaining similar trading ranges. So to answer the question that you wanted me to answer, though, where do I think we're going? I could see not this cycle, but the next cycle, like sometime in early, maybe mid-December, we actually hit towards that 84K mark. I think that is a very realistic target. Is it a little high? Yeah, I'd say so. We might give it like a 30% chance for that level of upwards momentum. But I think that we are getting to the point in the year where we are expecting the accumulation to finish, and we're expecting to start pushing up and up and up. This should theoretically be that start of that gradual uptick before we get to that blow off top. But at the same time, like I mentioned in the beginning, I would not be surprised at the same time if we kind of just like flirt with higher levels before really exploding. So that's why I say 84. It's not 100K. It's nothing crazy, but I think it's a realistic target.
And look, like we talked about earlier, we're just getting to the 6th month post-halvening, right? And so this cycle is a little bit different. And so for us being below the 200 moving average, it's hard to compare to previous cycles because we hit all-time highs before the halvening this time, which we had never done before. Which means that we're probably going to be quite a bit higher than the high this cycle compared to, I think, 2016, just percentage-wise. Well, not percentage-wise, just number-wise. And so I think that hitting, like you said, 84K or something to that extent in Q4, maybe in a really high level, we even get a little bit higher than that. But we push these higher numbers. And then, look, I think the 80s come back down. Start to build that next higher level. That's what we really need to do. We need to build that next higher level. But to build that, we need to get there first. And I think Q4 is a way for us to be able to do that. We need to break out of this downward pattern, as you're talking about. But downward patterns, not necessarily a bull flag, right? Kind of the opposite, but it gives us an opportunity to break out. And that's my hope. And I think that if we do, that would be not 8-9 months. We'd be maybe looking 4 or 5 months more. And maybe we hit like the top of this cycle, like maybe mid 2026. Again, this cycle is kind of unique because of the ETFs. I think it's a little bit hard to predict. Also because of how poor altcoins have performed, that I think this cycle might be just slightly different. Still within that 4-year structure, but maybe slightly different than what we've seen previously. And people need to keep that in mind and keep an eye out for that.
For sure. I mentioned it briefly, but what do you guys think about the Ethereum price action right now? I think it's the weaker out of pretty much everything. I think Solana is looking a lot stronger than Ethereum right now, even though Ethereum was the one that got the ETF. And it's odd to watch us drop levels like this in a way that the rest of the market has not. Because Bitcoin is largely still in the same like slightly downwards channel, in my opinion, but Ethereum has very clearly had a different structure and is now in a different range.
Solana meme coins did better this cycle. That's the difference.
I could see that. I could see that for sure. But I mean, to touch on something you guys talked about earlier.
He's had Pepe, and that did phenomenal. But Solana had Dog with Hat. That was the #1 meme mover this year. And a lot of that money moved into other memes, and that continued to build that chain strong. So when we're talking about narratives, I think Solana has done really well because of the meme coins that have done well on it. And that's because people worry about gas fees, right? They don't want to build these meme coins on Ethereum. And that's a little bit, people don't want to play in that space a little bit because it's more expensive transaction wise. So if you put in like scratchers over and over and over on these different coins, it's going to add up on Ethereum. But on chains where it's less expensive, it's a little bit easier to play the meme game.
Yeah, at the end of the day, this, like, it harkens back to what we were talking about earlier, right? It's about the fact that 2 cycles ago, even 1 cycle ago, right? Last 4-year cycle, the market wasn't saturated with this many projects, right? And what happens is, yes, you get an oversaturation of shitty projects, but you also get a lot more competition in the space, right? Ethereum is no longer the only thing that people want to build on, right? I think over the past few years, Ethereum's weaknesses have been severely exposed, and you've had I was gonna make I'm gonna make an anime reference here, right? You've had a few Eren Yeagers come in, right? They try to the usurper try to dethrone Ethereum, right? And a lot of the ones that have been basically front runners, right? Solana in particular, and the reason why they were able to accomplish that is because they were able to have the space latch on to the narrative in particular, right? What really saved Solana from the grave, because there was a severe stigma coming into this bull market with their attachment to FTX, right? Which is why we saw such a harsh retracement on the price chart for Solana, right? But when the saga came out, right, and then they attached WIF, right? Oh, not WIF, it was Bonk. It was Bonk that really like started the run for Solana, right? And then WIF came in afterwards, right? Solana really latched on to that narrative. And what did we speak about, right? The tech is fantastic, right? But if you can't get people to come onto your chain and play on your chain, then nobody's going to buy in, right? If you like, no matter how you feel about the meme coin space, it would be foolish for you to sit there and say that a large amount of the price appreciation that Solana benefited from over the past like year or so, like was not largely due to the fact that they had a lot of people coming on and playing on their space because of their meme coins. Like that's foolish, right? And they still have chambers in their gun, right? Fire Dancer still yet to come out, right? So that's hopefully going to fix the bottlenecking problem that Solana has had for a long time, right? They're shutting down because, like, allegedly, we'll see, right? Because it's not just Solana that's had this problem. Solana is the meme of the space, right? But Avalanche has had times when they lose their power, right? Coinbase loses power all the time. Sorry, we got to stop trading. Too many people coming in. Like that bottleneck effect is not isolated to Solana. They just happen to be the meme of the space when it comes to that, right? And so, yeah, the narrative is going to matter a lot. And you have a lot of big competitors, right? Phantom is coming out with Sonic, right? Solana, Avalanche is AVAX is making a run as the premier gaming L1 of the space, right? And so, yeah, there's a lot of competition for Ethereum right now. As much as we like Ethereum, right? Like for me personally, Ethereum is a large percentage of my portfolio. I'm not gonna lie, right? So I want to see Ethereum look good, but that doesn't make it immune to competition, just like everybody else, right? Just like every other asset is, right? So yeah, is it surprising to me that Ethereum is not performing as well? No, it's not surprising because you don't have a hold of like you don't have a monopoly of the market share of the eyes of the altcoin space in the way that you did in 2016, right? Like there are other platforms to build on now. It's not just Ethereum anymore, right? People are going to want to build somewhere where it's a lot cheaper, right? It's a lot faster. Maybe the tech is a bit more user friendly, right? So where maybe they can accumulate a bit more market share because Ethereum is fairly congested. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of reasons I can come up with right now. There's a lot of narratives that I can tell you of why Ethereum is not doing as well as it's as we all hope it is, right? And it's gonna stay that well. It's gonna stay that way unless they adapt. Ethereum has to adapt, right? Vitalik, right? You gotta practice some sperm retention, my friend. Okay, like you gotta get back. Like you gotta get back on the mission, bro.
Get out of the strip clubs, get into coding.
Z, what do you think about Bitcoin in Q4? What do you think it's going to do? Or Jay, sorry. Z already said it.
I maintain my position of 80,000, right? Again, like that's been my number, right? On my analysis, 80,000 minimum, right? That's my conservative estimate. So not too much. And
Jay's conservative, so 80,000 conservative for Jay's pretty good in my boat.
Yeah,
like it. All right, gentlemen, let's talk about a few of the lesser known projects, coins, whatever we want to hit for the last bit of the show. We promised that we talk about Hex a little bit here, and I do want to hit that. So first off, let's just cover that one. So we have Richard Hart hearing in October 31st. We're probably not going to get an official like dismissal or action or anything. Judge has pretty much 2 months afterwards to make their official move. So odds are we're probably going to see something before the end of the year. But we've had what is effectively like a 6x on price on Hex alone in like the last 3 weeks. So one of the questions I've been posing to people is, do you guys think this is actual genuine growth, or do you think that this might be people trying to front run potential news event in late October, November, maybe early December? What do you guys think about that?
So far, moves like this have been a sell the news event. Just the reality of things, right? Now, could that change if Bitcoin maintains its uptrend, right? If we take 70,000, I think that can change. Because what you see on the chart right now, especially for Hex in particular, that is this is the strongest uptrend we've had for Hex since Pulse Chain released, right? I'm talking about PHEX in particular, right? We have now stayed above the 10-day moving average for almost an entire month. That's a big deal. And when I say strong, that's strong because your 10-day is a very sensitive moving average, right? Right. You tend to lose and regain the 10-day like that. And if you take a look at that that is a definition of a strong uptrend. That the Hex chart has been pushing the top of the Bollinger Bands for the last 30 days, right? It has used that 10-day moving average as support, bouncing on it every single time it's touched it, right? So this is the strongest move for Hex that we've had since inception. That says a lot.
Jay, is that an Elliott wave 1?
Yeah, look, hey, man.
That is a wave 1. Like, my God.
Like, think about that.
I already said this. The Hex chart is not pretty. The Pulse X chart is pretty. The incentive chart is pretty. Hell, even the Pulse Chain chart, even though it was basically part of a larger correction, like the structure on that is more attractive. Like the Hex chart is so fucking choppy, bro. Yeah. But who knows, right? It might change with this with the start of this next impulse, right? Because this uptrend is very strong. It is extremely strong.
Yeah. So Zenith, I think that we definitely see a fairly continued pump. I don't know if it'll be as much as it's been the last 3 weeks in the next 3 weeks, but I think that positive price action is good for the Richard Hart hearing, or at least people perceive it that way. I don't think that we're going to get any real news on October 31st from the judge. I think that we'll get the arguments and we'll be able to read those and we'll be able to get some ideas. But even if it's positive, I still think, like Jay said, it's a sell the news event. So I will be looking at what the prices are at that point and see if I want to shave a little bit off to buy back lower. I haven't done that a lot because it's a risky thing to do, especially in an ecosystem like this where one
Trend
person
is your friend,
can...
man.
What?
Trend is your friend. Trend is your friend. Don't if the trend is up and to the right.
Well, that's the point. It's like in this ecosystem, especially when you have one person with a big OA bag that you know can buy coins at any point, it's very risky to take anything off the top. And so I know people think about that. And look, it's still something that I need to consider. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I'm going to consider it depending on how the charts look. But it would be a small percentage if I did. But nonetheless, I do think we see a fairly good pump into the hearing, and then we see a little bit of a regression from there. But let's not act as if Pulse Chain and Hex haven't been the most depressed coin in all of crypto, right? Bingo. So these coins needed to pump at some point to prove that the ecosystem isn't dead. Now, none of us thought the ecosystem's dead. We talked about how big the following and the cult is and the engagement is from people. But look, 3 weeks ago, people were fighting all over X in the Pulse Chain and Hex communities, right? We have a few green candles and we haven't seen any of that. People are just happy. And so it doesn't take much for narratives to change. But look, we're still only up a little bit off the bottom. So for people that haven't been into the Pulse Chain ecosystem, the Hex ecosystem, if you're new here, you're still in a great buy opportunity. We're still half sack for Pulse. We're still almost about a third sack for Pulse X. And we're way down from all-time highs of combined Hex price if we were just to look at combined Hex as the top of eHex. So there's huge growth opportunity here. I tweeted out this week when combined Hex price was at 2 cents that if we got back to all-time highs, right? That's a huge gain. If we got to $1, right, that's a 50x. $2, 100x. $5, which is only 10x from previous all-time highs, seems crazy from here, but just a 10x from all-time highs, we'd be at 250x. So the opportunity, even at these prices, even after these green candles, is I think life-changing opportunity personally.
Yeah. Here's what I would say about if this happens to be a sell and use event. If the rest of the market is moving out, I guarantee you right now, anybody who's trying to trade, who expected the sell the news event to happen and trade against the trend, that pullback is going to be short-lived. So like, be very careful, because if the rest of the market is like, especially Bitcoin is making new all-time highs, and you try to sell that news because there's nothing really, there's not really a big announcement at the hearing, right? Like the dismissal gets denied, which obviously we've spoken about that. High probability that it gets the dismissal gets denied. If you try and take that trade, like, that downtrend is going to be like, the pullback is going to be short-lived, and you might get out of position. So just a little bit of just a bit of caution, man.
Yeah, Jay. Sorry, if you look.
No, I was just going to ask real quick, Brendan, if when you go back to your Hex chart, can you toggle on the 10-day moving average just to give people a visual of how strong that fucking uptrend is?
And I was going to say, every time the Hex chart, look at every time it tried to sell off, there were big wicks down and it got bought up really quickly. It happened a few days. And so that's exactly your point, Z. Like, it looks like, hey, we have a big uptrend here. Last time Hex hit 1 cent, there was a big sell off. Well, this time it was close to 1 cent. We get a sell off and it just powered through. And so you have to be really careful, right? Like, if you think you're selling off and people aren't ready, just straight up. But look at those candles. There are large wicks down and they get bought up really quickly.
Yeah.
The most impressive thing about this chart for me is the volume. I think that this is one of the good examples that this is an actual genuine
strong uptrend
trend. Yeah. And I think it's possible, like, in part, I'm not going to call it entirely Corey's doing, but people like Corey Gear out there who are literally bringing in and onboarding 6-7 figure people to get them into the ecosystem at a fantastic time to do so, and doing it smartly in ways so that the people that come in that are big players don't even get front run themselves. So I think that this is very organic right here, and that's one of the best pieces of news for me.
Yeah. Like, not only seeing the strong, the price maintain above the 10-day moving average for like basically over a month now. You have higher highs on your volume candle every single time you make a new high. That's what you want to see, right? Because there's a large injection of funds creating the price action. And Z doesn't have it toggled on now, but we are like, the RSI says we're extremely oversold, but we just knocked out the divergence on the RSI, right? So look at that, man. Like, we knocked out the divergence, the bearish divergence on the RSI. Now, obviously, this is you really got to be careful, because we are very oversold territory. So we're probably due for a small pullback, right? Just the nature of price action, right? Nature of charts. But like, all these indicators that I'm seeing, volume, momentum, holding key moving averages, right? Those are all good signs.
And can I say the other thing is, the last time we saw a big pump within the Pulse Chain ecosystem, the OA was buying coins. The last time that we got back up to SAC price had nothing to do with organic price movement. It was the SAC funds putting money in. Now, I think that was a test to see how the market would move, that kind of stuff. But the OA address hasn't done anything. And look at this big downtrend for a long time, doing nothing. And now we see an organic move up. Man, this is bullish. Super, super bullish, in my opinion.
Hey, can we bring up Beyond All's? Good to see you here again, buddy. He actually has a question about the OA in particular. Maybe we can go over that real quick. Yes, don't you think? Go ahead.
Go for it.
All right. Beyond All asks, don't you think the OA will take advantage of the current trend to maintain the price action? Possibly. I think there's certainly a possibility that he can do that, right? Whoever the entity is. However, we actually spoke about this a few days ago I think it was yesterday, right? there was some back and forth between Jeff and
Pondev, yeah.
and Dev, yeah.
Proof of no work, Dev, yeah.
Yeah, and Dev. And one of the things that Dev brought up was that look, the OA can certainly inject capital into the ecosystem, right, to help the price move up. However, that has to be done very, very, very carefully, because if you try and inject too much capital into the system all at once in like large lump sums, like you're going to get attacked by the MEV bots, right? You don't you don't want that to happen, because then you're just bleeding capital, right? So yes, can that happen? Absolutely, but it has to be done carefully. And I think if the OA is the person we think who the OA is, I think they're gonna do it smartly.
Yeah,
there's also go for it.
I was just gonna say I don't see the OA pumping it this time, but I also don't see a big pullback as far as like, are we gonna get back to the 1/100th of a cent EHEX? Are we gonna get back to like the under one penny PHEX or the half penny PHEX? I don't think so. I think we this is such a strong move up that we've broke a lot of the resistance levels, that to get back to those lower levels, I think it's going to be challenging. So this strong organic move up is really healthy in my opinion. And I don't think the OA needs to inject funds right now to keep this momentum moving, at least not through October. And again, he's not looking short term like we are. He's looking long term. He's looking for glory. He's looking for, hey, what can my coin do max this cycle? Even 6 months past Bitcoin's top, right? Just like Hex last time, it was 6 months past Bitcoin's top before Hex hit its high, all-time high. So he's not looking at these small minutia. He's looking at long-term trends, and he's, believe me, thinking and seeing things that we aren't even talking about yet. Because I do believe that he's playing steps ahead of what our thought processes even are.
Yeah,
That's true.
Crispy. Go ahead, Z.
I was going to say the other thing on this note is that I think there might even be another meta game surrounding this idea of the OA and buying stuff, which is that the hearing and the prosecution is still going on right now. I know it's not technically correct, but the idea, one of the things that was alleged is that due to the sacrifice, he has a financial obligation to, I guess, tell investors what he's doing and act in their best interest, even though that's entirely bunk. So if you're trying to fight against that narrative, it might be in your best interest not to have the OA actually like trying to affect price and whatnot right now. Richard Hart has done a very good job of trying to show that this is a entirely decentralized process by doing stuff like taking Hex and Pulse Chain and even the bridge offline and pretty much just putting code out there and telling people, cool, you run the blockchain now. Yep. Stuff like that. So a move to use the OA to help boost price, it makes sense, but I think from the legal aspect, if you want to try to read that into it, I think it's unwise to do so as of right now, even though it shouldn't matter. But unfortunately, the people trying to find Richard Hart and stop him from doing all this stuff believes that it does matter. So it's a game you got to play right now, and I think that might be part of what's going on. Another one for me is that, like, remember, I think the OA bought Ethereum at like $3,400 or something, and Ethereum is at like $2,400 right now. So if you wanted to try to use some of those funds, it means you'd be selling Ethereum at a loss to do so. Yep. But I don't know. Not my wallet. I don't make those decisions.
Yeah, the injection of capital has to come at very strategic points in the market, right? You can't just willy-nilly put money in just for price to go up. Like, you have to be very strategic about it, right? Like a large market maker like that, like, you can't be careless with how you market make, right? Crispy has a good comment here, because we were talking about like just the long-term vision. Bean was talking about the long-term vision that the OA has, that Richard Hart for the ecosystem, right? He says, since I am primarily staking Hex, he's not affected by the buy the rumor, sell the news. Yeah, that's completely correct, right? Like we were talking about Jeff earlier. That's one of Jeff's strategies, right? He's just doing rolling stakes on Hex, accumulating that yield, right? So like if you're doing that, if you're actually using the protocol for what it was built to do, right? Just accumulate, stake, and get more Hex, and you don't have to worry about the buy the rumor, sell the news events, right? Because you have a long-term vision in mind.
Yeah, and it's a good point. In fact, I don't personally have a lot of liquid Hex. I was farming Hex Pulse Hex for I don't know, the last 8 months. But when Hex started to move to the upside, I took that out, and then I put in I restaked a bunch of that Hex. So I don't even have it liquid, but I do have some. I always keep some Hex liquid because I think it's always, personally, I don't think it's good to lock up all your tokens. I mean, look what happened with what's his name recently in Kareem, right? Kareem didn't have enough liquid Hex, right? When something unexpected happened. So look, I think it's always important to have some liquidity within your portfolio. But if you want to maximize your Hex and maximize your gains, you have to stake as much as you can. T-shares are where it's at.
True. I got one final idea on Hex I want to pitch, and this is over to Jay, actually. You were talking about earlier, the 0.618 fib level is the usual retracement level. If we look at the actual current price of lately, it looked like it might have been, there's some action right around that level. What I was looking at is the idea of we have a bit of a support level from back in February through March of like 0.014. It's not exact, but it's close enough that leads me to believe that that might be the next pullback before we, if we keep going up from here.
That is correct, right? So we spent quite a bit of time around that range. So if we are going to pull back, that range is going to, that horizontal range, the bottom of that range is going to hold as what you would hope is pretty strong support, right? But again, who knows? On the upside though, there's not a lot of resistance left on the upside, right? We had that like 2.9 cent local top. That's about it, man. Aside from like the shenanigans that were going on day one, when Pulse Chain was released, when we were all ratio trading, trying to grow our bags,
getting wrecked, trying to catch knives.
I mean, we get wrecked, bro. Like we made out pretty well. So
I don't even remember what happened then. I just know that the price was down for so long that it didn't matter what I did then. That like I'm okay now.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why we were doing it, right? Like we knew that the price was like, okay, so the price was down, but we didn't care about price down. We cared about growing our bags, right? Cultivating crypto.
Yep.
So that's what we did. We grew our Hex bags that way. We grew our Pulse Chain bags, Pulse X bags, incentive bags that way by doing the ratio trades. But like back to the point was that there's not a lot of resistance to the upside. 2.9 was the local top. There's nothing after that. There's really nothing after that for Hex.
And look, it's crazy that we can be so far down on this Hex price because I sacrificed, right, Pulse X a lot. And I had bought Hex a lot before the snapshot, as a lot of people did. And so if I were to look where I was then to now, I'd be like, dang, I'm way down. But because we were so engaged in the ecosystem from day one, from when Pulse Chain launched, swing trading for months, when it was lucrative. Yeah. And then we switched from swing trading to farming, which was lucrative for a long time. You know, we were able to build bags that, and again, early Hex days, that was staking, right? And so we took what the early Hex people did in staking and how they increased their coins by so much to the point where like, I shouldn't be in profit, but I am. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we're so depressed price-wise, but because of all of those things, because I was tied in every day, even in depression, even when most people are depressed and don't want to look at the charts, I was working hard. I was looking at this stuff every single day, and I know you guys were as well. And it makes a huge difference. Like the work that you put in really makes a fucking difference. Like just because charts go down doesn't mean you don't have opportunities to make money, but you have to put in the work. It took me years to learn how to do that. Yeah. And this is what we're trying to teach people. And it's like, hey, and look, people that have been in Hex a long time talk about that a lot as well, right? They talk about like, hey, the value of a T-share isn't necessarily like the chart doesn't matter if you're staking your T-share and getting T-shares, and so it's the same thing. I'm rambling a bit here, but it's super important.
It's a good example, right? Because people tend to focus. Obviously, they tend to focus on the dollar valuation of the assets, but we're talking about here how we didn't focus on the dollar valuation of the asset, right? We focused on the valuation against other core coins, right? So you were able to grow your bags that way, right? So, and you mentioned another, like you looked at the valuation in terms of T-shares, right? Not against dollars. So it's a skill that you certainly do. It's a valuable skill to learn, because then you kind of start to adopt the ethos of crypto, right? what's that meme? When you're ready, Neo. Like I think the meme went something along the lines of Neo was asking Morpheus, like, when do I trade my Bitcoin into fiat? And then Morpheus goes, Neo, when you're ready, you wouldn't have to, right? Because then you stop looking at your Bitcoin valuation against US dollars. You look at everything valued against Bitcoin, right? Same concept here, right? So that skill is very important because you can take it outside of Polchain, right? A lot of our community is in Phantom. Well, there's speculation that Phantom is not going to like completely be phased out, right? That it's gonna like Phantom is gonna exist and then Sonic is gonna exist. There are gonna be opportunities for ratio trading between that pair once that protocol is released too. So if you've been practicing those skills here in Polchain and you also like Phantom, you can take the same fucking skills over to Phantom and cultivate more crypto that way as well. Right?
Exactly. Jay, honestly, it's I think the biggest thing, the most important thing you said was stop looking at your bags in US dollar value. If I looked at my bags in US dollar value, I would have been out of crypto years ago, right? But that wasn't my plan. My plan was an 8 to 10 year plan. Don't think about this as a get rich quick scheme. This is, hey, I need to learn. I got to put in the time. I got to learn this industry. I got to learn this new job. I got to learn this new technology, right? Like look at it differently and then cultivate your coins, build your bags. Don't look at dollar price. Find ways to increase your coin totals. In long term, you're going to do well. And that's why Hex is almost long term. It's hard to lose because your coins get built, you stake, and you can't sell them, right? But if you want to learn the space, there are other ways to build coins as well, other than just staking. And you'd be dumb not to learn those.
Awesome, gentlemen. Good stuff. Let's go ahead and close out the show with a few more tokens. I got 2 projects that have some news events coming up. One of them's Phantom, the other's Fetch. And then after that, I unfortunately have a token I want to discuss as a patient I have under observation in the ICU because I am slightly concerned about it, and that is Alluvium. So let's jump to Phantom. Obviously, the Sonic Network is releasing some point. Rumors have it that it is potentially launching in Q4, so this is something to keep on the horizons as an event to pay attention to. What's going on here is that Phantom is actually upgrading its own network, and they figured out a way to make their tech even better to the point where they have to launch a new network itself. That is going to be the, it's like the 3 versus 5. What it is pretty much is that the tech is so good, it's just not compatible with the Ethereum virtual machine stuff, so they're pretty much creating new tech there. Yeah. So this is an event that's going to happen. Theoretically, based on what's going on right now, is that the Phantom Network is going to exist and going to get upgraded, but there's going to be a token generation event for the Sonic Network, and you'll have the ability to swap some of your Phantom to Sonic if you want. So there's a couple different strategies you could have. Do your research and just pay attention because this is a big event on the horizon. Up next, we got ASI, very similar. They are migrating tokens from Fetch, Ocean, and, what was the other one? AGIX, yep, to Fetch. We've gone through phase 1 right now, where everything is getting consolidated into Fetch. We're waiting for phase 2 to get announced, where they're going to go from Fetch to the ASI token itself. If you look on some of your centralized exchanges, the token is not swapped over yet, but they've already started changing some of the naming protocols. Yep. So if you go onto Coinbase, for example, you can purchase the Fetch token, same as you always have been. They've just already started changing the name to ASI or Artificial Superintelligence.
Yep. And CoinGecko is the same thing.
Yep, exactly. And on to our final topic that I want to bring up. Alluvium. I cannot type right now. We've been streaming this for so long, the fingers are going numb.
Man, GameFi has been a letdown this cycle so far, huh?
That it has, which is quite unfortunate.
We did not expect that. Q1 thesis, I think we were talking about the strength of potential GameFi. And so now that we're talking about the opposite of that, it's interesting that you can't get married to any of your narratives. That's the story. That's just the truth of it.
Exactly. So what we're looking at on Alluvium is that we've pretty much made almost new all-time lows in a point in the market where we should not be making new all-time lows.
We basically swept the bear market lows.
Yeah, right here at like $34. This is, if you had asked me earlier in the year if we would ever see $40 Illuvium again, I would have told you no. I thought that would have been gone forever, but here we are. That is now our trading range. The trading range is now between like $45 and $35, and it's crazy to think after
shit.
Exactly.
That was
Yeah,
like
we spent
Christmas prices.
Exactly. We spent the majority of spring and summertime in the hundreds, like right around that $100 mark, bumping all the way up to like 150, 160 at one point, and then getting some good dips down at 80 before we just had that slow decline all the way back down. And now here we are at $38.
Yeah. This is the inevitable result for some assets, no matter how good they are, right? When you have a sideways consolidating market where there is a significant amount of uncertainty, especially when it comes to like the war with the Middle East. Now it's Iran and Israel, right? And then obviously the stuff with Iran, with Israel and Palestine, stuff with Russia and Ukraine, right? The inflation, the unemployment, there's significant amount of macroeconomic uncertainty that's going on in the market. And so people tend to be risk off, right? And the inevitable result of that is they're going to rotate out of these higher risk plays like GameFi. Doesn't matter that they're a good project, right? We know that it like Illuvium is no fucking slouch.
This is a very good project.
Yeah.
This is one of the best projects.
But like people are going to rotate
Allegedly.
from risk on to risk off. That's just the inevitable result, right? Even like here's another good example of like how the technicals play out. Look at how aggressive Illuvium moved when it released, right? Yes, good for price action. Bad because you don't create solid basis of support. And so what comes up aggressively comes down aggressively, and there's nothing to catch it underneath. Sorry. Just the state of play. I wish it wasn't, but that's how it's going to work. Now, do I think Illuvium recovers? I think so too, right? Illuvium isn't the only GameFi project that we had high hopes for, and it's not doing so well, right? Pixels was a big thing. New all-time lows. Shrapnel was a big thing. A lot of nonsense with the founders. Right? The only good projects that are doing right now, or at least like holding on, like Ronin, which is the like one of like Ronin. What else? Immutable, right? Holding up pretty well. But a lot of the other projects in GameFi, they're not exactly having a good time either. So I think Illuvium does well, but that's not going to come until 2025.
To run through some of what's been going on lately,
so it would be a good time to buy potentially because it's depressed.
It very much could be, yes. I mean, I'm not going to tell you.
But it's risky, right? Because you shouldn't hit the bear market lows at this point.
That's true.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You're good. The reason I'm bringing this up is I think this is a project a lot of us have been interested in, and this is doing the exact opposite of what our expectations were for it. So the question is, am I buying or am I selling this? And the answer is I'm still buying more because I believe it's a good project. The fundamentals are there. I think the team building it is one of the best teams out there, and I think there's enough of a roadmap to keep coming down the pipe that is going to keep people interested, and it's going to have the ability to have that pump into later on in the bull market when it's time for it. Right now, we had the game launch, which I think unfortunately translated into a sell the news event. Additionally, we also had the beta testing airdrop. So a lot of Illuvium got airdropped to folks. And on top of that, the staking rewards ended, which means that people were unable to get the staking rewards. Granted, there's still the vesting schedule that is at least a year out. So people are going to be unlocking those tokens into the future, which unfortunately does add more sell pressure. But I think part of the reason that you can kind of explain what's going on here is the fact that we've just had a couple consecutive events that have incentivized people to sell more than buy. Yep.
Bad timing, unfortunately, right? You can't time the market perfectly. Bad timing on the game release. And I think the team was stuck between a rock and a hard place because the release was delayed multiple times already. Like 2 more weeks, right? This is the fucking meme. So there's that, and then obviously the token unlocks, which it's always going to present some kind of downward pressure on price, right? Unlocks, which is why we say you got to look at the fundamentals, man. You got to look at the vesting schedules, like how much do the founders hold? How much does the VC hold? What's the vesting schedule on the unlocks, right? Like you have to know these things because then you won't get surprised when price inevitably takes a downturn because people are selling their unlocks. So
token emission schedules are very important. I would highly recommend people pay attention to them when they can.
Yep.
Now, this might be a little more tinfoil hat theory than the other stuff we talked about, but I do think that there might be a potential to say that Pal World actually is part of the reason why more players didn't flock to the game, which is like they might have had that itch scratched already earlier in the year for a creature capture kind of game. So to have Illuvium come out, is it different? Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, I think for the general audience that they're playing to, it's possible that someone else kind of took the wind out of their sails with Pal World getting released. But
yeah,
like I said, I think that's more tinfoil hat theory.
Yeah. I think there's merit in that, Z. We spoke about that when Pal World and like literally Illuvium released if like shortly after Pal World basically captured the zeitgeist of the creature capture space, right? But also I think that like GameFi is starting to get like steam in crypto, but you still don't have a hold on the traditional gaming space, right? Like when the wife was playing a game, I was talking with one of the gentlemen on her stream, and we were talking like she was playing Pal World. I was talking about like, hey, you heard about this Illuvium game? Like, what do you think about it? It's crypto gaming. And then as soon as I told him it was crypto gaming, like the conversation was like, I don't like the crypto. I don't like the microtransactions, et cetera, et cetera. So there's still there's still the stigma attached.
Strong.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Crypto gaming is like, as much as I hate to admit it, it's going to have a difficult time grabbing that audience because traditional gaming people are so adamant. They are so adamant against microtransactions in their games. They fucking hate it. They don't even like DLC being constantly released because the argument is, why didn't you just give us the full game? Why are you giving us so much DLC? But what we know, like if you're paying attention to the gaming industry, is that a lot of these large entities are having a difficult time if they don't switch to that pay-to-play model, right? The CEO of, I think it was the American CEO of Square Enix came out with a statement recently that even though the Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest titles have hit multi-platinum, like they're having a difficult time like keeping the company above water, right? Because they're losing out to these IPs who've transitioned to pay-to-play. It's the unfortunate reality. You're like the majority of gamers are still vehemently opposed to paying more than what the initial game cost, right? And so you throw crypto in there where you like there's a token economy involved. Like you have an uphill battle in GameFi. Like you just do.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but the stigma is something that definitely has to be overcome to get the wide mainstream adoption. All right, gentlemen, real quick. One of us has a hard out, so I do want to kick it over to Brendan so he can say his final piece, and we can thank our man for all of his efforts in the work on the Q4 Thesis show.
You know what? The first thing I want to say is I'm ready to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. Literally, Will just sent that to me, and we were both over here just like.
It's jamming in my headset right now. I'm like literally.
I saw that me and Will literally our heads were exactly the same time, so then we were listening at the exact same time. But no, honestly, great show. Zenith, thanks for putting together the Q4 Thesis, and Jay Will as well. I know it's a team effort, but Z, you took the lead on this one for sure. I'm excited. I think Q4 is going to be strong. I do think the election is important, and so please, if you aren't registered to vote, go register to vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I have my opinions, and neither I love, but I definitely have a strong opinion on who I think should be voted for this cycle. Now, I also think in 4 years, there are going to be much better candidates, in my opinion, that I'm going to be very, very much more likely to want to vote for. But you never know what's going to happen in 4 years. I could be retired in another country and not worried about what happens here in the United States. Well,
it could be on Jeff's Island.
Jeff's Island or the UAE, who just said that they aren't going to. Wait a second, Jay. No. Hex Island? We'll say Hex Island.
Hexaco, baby.
But the UAE just said that they aren't going to going to tax crypto transactions.
Yep, right out earlier. Mhm.
So we'll talk about that on Sunday, I'm sure. We'll get into some of the deeper news. This is Q4. Wednesday, next Sunday. That's some pretty big news. But no, honestly, really happy to be here. It's a Sunday night. I have a little bit of work to do before I go to bed and got to be up in the morning. So keep working hard. Keep doing what you got to do. And remember, listen to Endor. Give you some pump up.
You do pump it up. You got to pump it up.
No, but honestly, thank you guys. Jay, Z, Will, love you guys. Finish the show strong. To the chat, thank you guys always, and ladies, for being part of our community. Join the Telegram, like, subscribe, and we'll see you on Wednesday, hopefully, God willing.
We'll see you, amigo.
Sure.
Have a good night. Love you. Bye.
Speaking of the chat and everybody's still around here, I do want to cover that real quick, so bring it up. That's right. It's time for chat shoutouts. So here we go. First up, we got Fast Abdul, aka Pulse Jitsu with Fast Abdul. He says number goes up. S. I don't know what the S was. I hope it's a typo, but otherwise it's a reference that I do not understand, and that's A-okay. Already up next, who else we got? Moonpilled Rational Optics. Good to see you, my man. He says, hey guys, I will have to catch the replay. That is okay, because hopefully it's even better the second time around. So, good to see you, brother. Glad you can make it. And then we have a very benevolent donor. We have, again, Fast Abdul with, oh God, what is this one? BYN.
BYN. OBGYN. This is the cryptocurrency that you pay when you go and see your pregnancy doctor, your gynecologist.
All right, he says, a word from our sponsor. Let's talk bribes. Get your bribes on Pulse Chain with the upcoming Berry protocol. Bribes for your 2 fucks, and 9-inch votes. You are only one bribe away from financial freedom, not financial or medical advice.
The Belarusian ruble.
Oh, very nice, very nice. The rubles. Thank you for the 100 rubles, my man. And I gotta say, I'm actually very excited for this protocol. I think this is the best branding that Fast Abdul has done, is the whole bribe thing, and I like it a lot. I'm very excited.
Holy
it's the
smokes.
idea that if you want to be part of these staking pools, oh wow, big shout out to
Thank you, Fast Abdul.
Keeping the lights on around here.
This is good.
If you want to use the bribe protocol, what you do is you sell votes for staking pools to get increased rewards. So if you just don't care, but you're in the pool, you can sell your vote to other people who do care and want more power. So that's one way to do it. I like it. I like it a lot.
You have economic energy, and the bribery system allows you to take advantage of your energy. It's like, just imagine you go on vacation and you could rent out your car to people while you're not home. You know, you're not going to be using it. You can give it to other people, they'll pay you for it. Similar principle, totally different, totally bad analogy, but you can sell your things that are worth money. And then then people use it.
I like it. I'm super excited for this.
I know
it's the shtick that he's had for so long, and it's like a real thing now. So I'm stoked.
Yeah. Yes.
Sure. All right, gentlemen, we are going to start winding down the show. So I do want to go around and get some final thoughts on the quarterly thesis. How do we feel about the next few months? What do we think is going to be the biggest force? I think the election's important, but I don't think it's going to be dominant. I think that, Jay, you made a really good point there when you're pointing out that if September is green, the following quarter is usually entirely green. And I think the trend is going to hold. So I think we're going to see some good economic energy going on, specifically in the crypto sector. I think we are going to see some volatility, unfortunately, thanks to election stuff. But at the same time, during times of volatility, people look for stability. I'm not going to say Bitcoin's stable per se, but it might be a good place to park some money. So, yeah, election's going to matter, probably not as much as people think. And at the end of the day, I think we're going to break the downtrend and we're going to start going towards the upside. What do you guys got?
I think that the most important, so here's my sarcastic answer, because I'm not a fortune teller, right? I can read your palm to make you feel better and give you some good little feelings about oh, your destiny is pretty good. You got a split here, and oh wow, look at that. Your financial future is great, right? I can read palms and stuff, but I'm not going to read crypto markets. I will tell you guys that I think that the most important thing that's going to be happening in the near future is the number of buyers and the number of sellers in the market. I think that if there's more buyers than sellers, then the price will generally go up. And I think if there's more sellers than there are buyers, then the price will go down. So what makes people do those things? Fuck if I know. Well, I do know what makes them do those things, but I I don't know how many campfire stories are out there and how many of them are going to be influencing people. So I will just say, be ready to surf. Fucking, you're going to be wrong. Be okay with it. Take the information, update your worldview, and move forward. That's all I got. What about you, Jay?
Simple, man. It's like trend is your friend. I'm not gonna bet against the pattern. Not gonna bet against the trend. Q4 of the having year is like really green, and so I'm going to bet on it to stay green. Like Will said, if the situation demands it, we're gonna pivot if we have to pivot. But like, I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy the green candles, bro.
Feels good, man. Feels good.
True. Only other question I got is, do you guys think we're actually gonna hit 2% inflation next year, or what?
Sure, why not?
I'm still doubtful. If anything, I'm actually slightly worried, and I think it's a this
Bro, we're
quarter
definitely
issue.
gonna hit it.
This...
It's without any doubt in my mind. Do I know that we're gonna hit that whatever number you said?
2%
2.5. 2%. Yes, that's the one. 2%. No doubt in my mind.
I asked that because I think this quarter might be a make or break moment for inflation and the trend for it. It's possible that this could be the quarter where it reverses back up, or at the same time, it could just go flat or something. Who knows?
I don't care. I don't care if it gets to 2. I just care that it stays below 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we're hovering between like the mid to high, I don't give a fuck if we hit 2%, bro. As long as we don't break above 3 again, man, because that's gonna make JP panic.
It's just slightly depressing to think that staying below 3 is the big ask, even though like it really shouldn't be. Because like this is the world that we live in. It's the baseline for inflation has crept up to the point where that's where it stays. So it's like, all right, whatever. I can't.
What's that story, Z? You know about how when you're cooking a crab in boiling water, you start it off slowly, so eventually it gets used to the boiling water.
Frog in the pot of boiling water,
and it doesn't know it's being cooked. That's where we are with 3% inflation, man.
There you go. Tell you what, chat. Are we cooked? Are we cooked by inflation? Let us know. All right, cool. Boys, let's go ahead and close out the show. Will, why don't you kick it off for us? Where can the folks find you, and what do you have going on in the near future?
So the folks at home, you guys can find me right here on the Degen Roundtable podcast, where on Wednesdays we do guests, on Fridays we do books, and on Sundays we do news live every 8 p.m. Eastern on these. There we go. On these here days. It's so weird, like working with like camera opposite everything. As far as if you guys want to stalk me and hang out and do good things and whatnot, the best place that you can find me is bit.ly/hex_meetup. I'm actually pulling up my list of links right now. But that's my little Hexican meetup channel space where you guys can go and meet Hexicans if you are a cool Hexican and you want to meet other Hexicans. Odds are they'll be pretty happy because Hex has gone up and doing great things. So go meet Hexicans at bit.ly/hex_meetup. I've gone ahead and dropped that link in the chat for you guys. And then as far as socials go, you all can find all of my socials at will.pls.fyi. So if you want to stalk me on Facebook, if you want to follow me on Instagram, if you want to follow my Twitter posts, if you want to go reach out to me on Telegram, or if you want to go check out anything that I've done on my like internet profile, you go to my link tree or whatever. It's all over there. Follow me, do whatever, do with that information what you will. I am a pretty damn doxed person. As far as things that I've got going on in the near future goes, I'm going to be hosting book club coming up on this Friday. We're going to be covering The Value of Others. Again, that's The Value of Others. I don't remember who it's written by, but it's a book about people. And I love people. I think people are pretty damn neat. And they're also valuable. So this book helps you determine what is the value of others. Like, how valuable is your friend? How valuable is your mother? How valuable is your great grandmother? How valuable is your boss, your aunt, your child? Blah, 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 blah. It takes all of this stuff and it puts it into a formula. That way you can figure out where you're going in life, whether you're going to be a captain or you're going to be a passenger, whether you're going to direct the outcomes of the world, or you're going to go along and you're going to help someone else with their plan. So The Value of Others, that's what we're covering this Friday. Other than that, I've got nothing special that I'm planning on. You guys can also catch me oftentimes in the Degen Roundtable video games chat, where I like to talk about how often I'm playing Sea of Thieves and everything. I've actually gone ahead and made a whole other I've made a whole other Telegram about Sea of Thieves for all of my Sea of Thieves amigos that already play with me. So if you guys are in that one, shout out to you guys. If you guys are a person that plays Sea of Thieves, then hit me up in this little chat that I'm dropping the link for down there. It is t.me/DRT join now /71250. For those of you guys that are listening on audio. For those of you that are watching live, you can click on the link that's in the chat. And for those of you guys that are watching on replay, you probably know how to get there because we talk about this every single show. For those of you that are brand new, we also have our QR code right here that I'm pointing to right now. It's off in the center of the screen. It's got a little Degen Roundtable logo on the inside of it that you guys might recognize from our intro video with the zazzy blue lights and all the flashing and everything. You click on, or not click on, you scan that QR code, it'll bring you right on into our Telegram group, which is again t.me/DRT join now. That brings you into the Degen Roundtable community Telegram. I'm going to drop that link in the chat as well. Mr. Agent J, time to toss it over to you, bud. What have you got going on in the near future, and where can the folks find you?
As always, we like to thank you guys for joining us here. Whether you're joining us live or on the replay, we know that time is your most valuable asset, and we do appreciate that you spend some of that time here with us. Unlike Brendan, we might not be able to give you financial advice here at the Roundtable, but I am going to give you advice on who to vote for. You're going to vote for Donald J. Trump if you want your bags to go up. Okay. Aside from that, like the damn video, comment, subscribe. Scan that QR code, jump into the Telegram because the Telegram almost always gets the alpha first before anybody else. You can find me on Instagram at _P90Hex or on X at completely mixed that over. X is _P90Hex and Instagram is agent_J Schroth. Until next time, remember, Degen responsibly. Z, take us out.
Will do. Folks, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ZenithDI. Most importantly, if you do one thing and one thing alone from this stream, go ahead and scan the QR code to get into the Telegram. If you have any questions, go ahead and @ any of us in here on that Telegram with your question or what you talk about. We'll get back to you. This is a very important show, and we want to make sure that we have good discourse around it. And if we have made any mistakes, please correct us and help make our research better so we can help all of our research get better. Will, can you hold up the wrist real quick? It's like iron sharpens iron, baby. Degens sharpen other degens.
There we go. You guys
there you go. Beauty. All right, let's get it right, boys.
Tattoo.
Agent J already said it once, but I'm going to say it again because it's so important. We know that time is your most valuable.
Before you go too far, Zenith, where can the folks find you and what have you got going on?
Instagram and Twitter, ZenithDI. And then other than that, I'm actually going to be hanging out with Matty Allin on Tuesday for Game Theory Gang. So I'm very stoked about that. So catch me over there. Show our buddy some love. He does fantastic work putting on the Hex and Pulse Chain conferences. And I think he's overall pretty cool dude. So that's not too bad. Outside of that, I believe this Wednesday we have a guest.
Maybe. We'll see. I don't fucking know, dude. I don't look.
We always try to plan for guests, but then sometimes the whole planning thing doesn't work out. But that's usually too much baseball, inside baseball to tell on stream. So we got that. We got Wiz Book Club coming up on Friday, and we have the Sunday show every Sunday next week, like we talked about earlier. We're probably going to be hitting some of the current events that we missed today because we were too busy yapping about inflation and macroeconomic stuff in an attempt to get Nate Magetta to start throwing full champagne bottles at his TV screen.
I have something I want to do. And you guys don't have to join me if you want to, but on Monday, I'm going to do a stream at 8 p.m. Eastern here on the Degen Roundtable. We're going to cover the Telegram news that's happened over the week, where it's just going to be a bunch of headline readings and things. So if you guys want to join me, 8 p.m. Eastern, I'll be basically just scrolling through the Telegram crypto news thing where it's got a bunch of little blip headlines and things. I think we did this before once or twice. I know I did it with Josh, and I think I did it with you a little bit, Zenith. But in any case, I'm going to do that. I will do that tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, so you guys can catch. We'll call it Campfire Stories with Will at 8 p.m. on Monday. So that'll be what's going on since we covered a whole lot of the Q4 thesis and stuff for today. So that will be happening tomorrow. I've made a decision. Sorry for stealing your thunder and cutting you off there, Zenith. Go ahead though.
All good. We got to tell the people what's going on. Otherwise, how will they ever know?
Yes.
All right. Jay said it once. I tried saying it twice, so here's the third time. We know that time is your most valuable asset. So we want to thank you guys each and every time you come spend it with us. So until we see you next time, I hope that everyone out there continues to degen responsibly.